Chapter 663. Wei Xing opened his eyes. His mind had recovered to its best state and he had a feeling that he was at the cusp of a breakthrough. His clothing was ragged and shredded as though he was a beggar. However, looking at him no one would feel that Wei Xing was a beggar. He stood with his back straight, head held high, and his presence was like a sharp and oppressive such that no one could look directly at him. He stood up, picked up the black sword and walked barefoot out of the valley. A group of Mo had gathered outside the mountain valley. When they saw him, they shifted. Everyone had complicated stares full of terror, hate, admiration, and other various emotions. But no one was disdainful. This was an enemy that could not be dismissed. Who's next? Wei Xing's gaze was determined. The MO shifted again. This was the 4th day. In these 4 days, over 30 people had died under the sword of this sword Xiu. Up until now, no one had even been able to exchange 3 blows. The great majority of people hadn't been able to survive the first strike before dying. He really was terrifying. So Xiuzha also had people that were like MO gods. In this moment, everyone's minds stopped and a short silence appeared. But thinking about the order they had received from their superiors, their hearts shook again. If they could not kill him, they were all going to die. Red rose up in these people's eyes. They were like wild beasts forced to the precipice. Someone howled, "Everyone, let's go together." Everyone's eyes lit up. Darren had only said they could not use battalions, but not that they couldn't fight together. Looking at their numbers and the lonely Wei Xing, their morale rose. With so many people attacking one person, no matter how powerful the sword Xiu was, he could not kill all of them. Kill! They cheered as they charged at Wei Xing. Looking at the noisy Mo, Wei Xing's sword-like gaze did not shake at all. His face seemed to be carved from granite, and completely emotionless. He tightened his grip on the black sword and moved forward. In his heart, there was only sword essence. The black sword in his hand seemed to respond to the sword essence in his chest and shook lightly. It was hungry and wanted to drink fresh blood. It probably is a MO marshal behind this, Pu Yao said with a calm expression. He had spent a long time in the MO territories with the Corps Command in the past and was very familiar with the MO, yes. Wei also nodded. When Pu Yao and Wei agreed on something, it meant that their conclusion was pretty reliable. But, MO Marshal. Zhuo Mo felt pressure at this answer. Any MO Marshal was the ruler of an entire region. They might have defeated Marshal Yu, but that didn't mean marshals were easy to deal with. If Marshal Yes battalions hadn't been busy and unable to come to help, if Marshal Yu had actually fought them seriously, Zhuo Mo wouldn't have had a chance at all. The power that MO Marshal possessed was really too great. Enormous battalions, vast lands, countless experts. Each MO Marshal represented a titan. The power possessed by those top marshals rivaled the 4 great sections. If everything here was being manipulated by a MO Marshal, then it really was great trouble. Zhuo Mo knew that Pu Yao and Wei's guess was probably correct. With his present reputation, unless there was a MO Marshal supporting them, these little factions would not dare to fight against him. When he had clues, it was easier to investigate. Zhuo Mo and the other quickly found out which MO Marshal was acting against them. Marshal Hao, the 5th strongest MO Marshal in the 100 Savage Realm. The MO Jia that Zhuo Mo's group were in now was very close to the area ruled by Marshal Hao. Marshal Hao was the most likely suspect. After investigating, Zhuo Mo had a clear understanding of Marshal Hao. Compared to Marshal Yu, Marshal Hao could be said to be an old marshal. The number of Jia he ruled was 3 times larger than that of Marshal Yu. He had become a marshal hundreds of years before Marshal Yu. Just the little bit of information that they found was enough for Zhuo Mo to end all thoughts of fighting the other. However, what was puzzling was that if Marshal Yu really had enmity towards them, then they had the power to completely exterminate them. Marshal Hao had more than 100 battalions under his command. To say of nothing else, just the sheer number would be enough to drown them. But why did the other only send little battalions to harass them and slow down their speed? Drag down their speed. What goal did the other have? Zhuo suddenly jumped up. Was there something waiting up ahead for them? Father, a middle-aged man said respectfully. According to your orders, Xiao Mo guess speed has slowed down. Not bad. Marshal Hao had a satisfied expression. His figure was slightly short and stock and he always had a smile on his face. He looked like a normal shopkeeper. He saw the puzzlement on his son's face and said with a smile, "You're puzzled?" "Yes." The middle-aged person nodded. "If we really want to slow them, we only need to invite Xiao Mo guest group to be guests here. With father's reputation, they definitely would not refuse. That way, we won't create bad relations with them, and we can still realize our goal. Wouldn't that be better? It is very good you can use your head." Marshal Hao looked at his son and said, "However, you need to look further. What do you feel is a greater danger to us, Xiao Mo Gu or Xian Kong Temple?" "Xian Kong Temple," the middle-aged man said after thinking. "While they are our allies in secret, they also have the power to vie for the world and is the greater threat to us." "Right." Marshal Hao smiled coolly. "While Xian Kong Temple appears to have a good relationship with us now, there will be fighting in the future. Xiao Mo Gu has potential but he has a weak foundation. It will not be easy for him to establish himself." The middle-aged person was thoughtful. Marshal Hao then said, "However, while Xiao Mo Gu doesn't have strong support, he still has a strong group of subordinates. In this battle between Xiao Mo Gu and Xian Kong Temple, it will be Xian Kong Temple's victory. However, Xiao Mo Gu has a chance to seriously injure Xian Kong Temple. The best result for us is that Xiao Mo Gu will greatly injure Xian Kong Temple before dying." The middle-aged person had an expression of realization. So father is using this method to fulfill Xian Kong Temple's request and also warn Xiao Mo Gu. Ha, do not underestimate Xiao Mo Gu. Even I feel jealous of the people he has. Bihan is a top battle general that can rival Jiang Zhe. They have the ability to make trouble for Xian Kong Temple. Marshal Hao smiled darkly. If Xian Kong Temple loses too much in this battle, then Xian Kong Temple's reliance on us will grow and our bargaining position improves. What if Xian Kong Temple loses? The middle-aged man instinctively asked. But when the words left his mouth, he felt what he said was a waste of words. How could Xian Kong Temple lose? That wasn't possible. How could Xian Kong Temple that was even stronger than themselves not be able to take down a Xiao Mo Gu's small forces? That wasn't possible. Marshal Yu stilled upon hearing this. His expression became strange. He was silent as though he was deep in thought. The middle-aged person regretted saying his words of garbage but suddenly heard Marshal Yu slowly speak, "If Xian Kong Temple loses, then it will not be good for them." The middle-aged man shook his head. Xian Kong Temple will not lose. Even if they do, it will not be a heavy blow to them. You do not understand. Marshal Hao shook his head with a serious expression. They must win this battle and they must do it in a beautiful manner. If they truly lose, then Xian Kong Temple will be in danger. They will have been defeated by their own traitor. The reputation and trust of their top battle general Jiang Zhe will be damaged. Xian Kong Temple's secret humiliation will become a weakness exposed to the world. At that time, no matter how large Xian Kong Temple is, it is just a pile of meat to lure in more wolves. The middle-aged person gaped. Tang Fei's mind was burdened. She had paid attention to the harassment they had recently faced and she had a strong feeling of danger. But on the surface, she maintained her calm and was even more strict in supervising Tangzi Battalion's cultivation. The individual skill level of the members of Tangzi Battalion was outstanding and even better than the city guard she had previously led. But their skills and tactics were terrible. It would take a long time before they could reach a satisfactory level. However, that required time and there were no shortcuts. Without the tactics binding them together, this was just a group of rabble. She hoped to shorten the time needed. If a battle really occurred, Tangzi Battalion that were not well trained in their tactics would become a target the enemy would focus on. Tang Darren, Darren is asking for you to come. Tang Fei's heart jumped. She knew that it was a meeting about the enemy harassment that had been occurring. She unhesitatingly went with the colonel to Zhuo Mo's tent. When Tang Fei arrived, almost all the core members in Zhuo Mo's service were present. Zhuo Mo's expression was grave. He did not waste words and narrated the results of the investigation as well as his own speculations. Everyone's expressions became serious. Gong Sun Cha was the first to speak. If it really is Marshal Hao, then they do not have good intentions to harass us like this. They definitely want us to fight and weaken each other. Their relationship to the enemy up ahead is strange. Yes. Bihan's tone was murderous and the temperature around him dropped. Suemo nodded, but what he asked was another question. More importantly, who is up ahead? This was the most crucial puzzle piece. If they didn't even know who the enemy was, then they didn't have any chance of victory. Gong Sun Cha stared at the Jie map and said, "We are going to Nether Spring Jie. There are many that know this, and the enemy definitely knows. That means that they will only choose to attack us at a location that we have to pass through." Gong Sun Cha's words attracted everyone's attention. Their gazes all moved to the Jie map. On the path that we must pass, having had past interactions with us, knowing our strength, and still daring to fight us. Everyone's gazes moved along the paths on the Jie map following Gong Sun Cha's words. Suddenly, everyone's gazes stopped on one place. Bihan's breathing suddenly became heavy. Chapter 664, Danger. It seems that Xian Kong Temple is determined to exterminate Xiao Mo Gu. However, they really think highly of Xiao Mo Gu. Shui Dong said with a laugh. Shui Dong had thick brows and large eyes. His appearance was fine and he had a bloodthirsty presence from battling for long periods of time. He had come to find Lin Qian immediately after he returned from the front lines. While Lin Qian was the Shixiang, Shui Dong was older. The two had a close relationship. Withdrawing his consciousness from the Jade Scroll, Lin Qian was slightly distracted. In order to guarantee their victory this time, Xian Kong Temple had sent out 2 of their Fanshu Xiuzhe to kill Xiao Mo Gu. Xian Kong Temple's action was well concealed, but Kun Lun's spy was placed high enough in their ranks that they were able to pass this on. What? Shui Dong sensitively detected Lin Qian's state. Lin Qian came back and said with a smile, "This Xiao Mo Gu is really an extraordinary person. It is a pity he will die." Oh. Shui Dong was slightly shocked. "I'm curious to know more about this person that you think so highly of. I fought against him when I went to the Mo territories this time. He seems slightly unfathomable." Lin Qian lightly described. Shui Dong changed expression. He knew how strong Lin Qian was. When Lin Qian said something like this, it meant that their battle had ended in a stalemate. Lin Qian's brow creased. This person's origins are very strange. He seems to have both Yao and Mo blood. Both his Yao arts and Mo skills are strong, and he also cultivates Shen power. Shen power? Shui Dong's eyes widened and his face was shocked. Yes, I only comprehended Shen power because I fought against him this time. Lin Qian thought of something and frowned again. He most likely has a complete inheritance. It would not be good if that lands in the hands of Xian Kong Temple. Kunlun wasn't the only one that was studying Shen power. Any sect that had history had ambitions about this. But in terms of who spent the most effort, it was undoubtedly the 4 great sections. Shui Dong's eyes narrowed. Yes. We cannot have the Shen power inheritance land in Xian Kong Temple's hand. Why don't we send a few people as well? That will not be appropriate. Lin Qian shook his head and his expression was grave. Xian Kong Temple has a legitimate reason to fight. No one can nitpick about their excuse of executing Bihan. If we send someone, then we will be publicly dissolving our relationship with Xian Kong Temple. Shui Dong also frowned. Lin Qian was right. They could not directly send people for this matter. We can still notify Xiao Mo Gu and have him hide. Lin Qian felt the matter was slightly troublesome. He had never thought that Xiankong Temple would send 2 Fanshu Xiuzhe for Xiao Mo Gu. Fanshu experts were strategic resources. If it was not a matter of life and death to the sect would not use them. It seemed that Xiankong Temple also understood the importance of this battle for them. It is really troublesome this time. Zhuo Mo's expression was very ugly. Xiankong Temple really has a high expression of GE. TSK, Fanshu, and 2 of them. The other commanders had terrible expressions. Zhuo received a letter today that said Xiankong Temple had sent out 2 Fanshu experts to assassinate him. Xiankong Temple clearly was wary of Zhuo after he killed Marshal Yu, so they were even willing to use such dishonorable tactics to completely eliminate this threat. While no one knew who the sender was, but everyone understood that this letter was probably true. 2 Fanshu. This completely exposed the magnitude of Xiankong Temple's great power. To kill a person by sending 2 Fanshu, only the 4 greats would have the resources to do this. This was power. Even with someone notifying him, Zhuo and the others had no solutions. How about we return to Cloud Sijie? Gongsun Cha looked at Zhuo with worry in his eyes. 2 Fanshu would have the ability to cut through their battalion. If they were working with battalions, their power would be even greater. Zhuo grimaced. Not enough time. I'm afraid that these 2 Fanshu old thieving baldies are not far from us. Bihan was silent. He hadn't thought that the sect would actually send 2 Fanshu to kill Zhuo. He had been with the sect for many years and knew that experts on Fanshu level were the ultimate power for the sect. Had Xiankong Temple felt that they were a threat to the existence of the temple? He felt slightly conflicted. He desired to fight against Xiankong Temple, but he knew that the 2 Fanshu were a big trouble. Zhuo's gaze suddenly landed on Bihan. How many Fanshu does Xiankong Temple have? Bihan stilled but quickly reacted. 5, 1 left to travel 30 years ago and has not returned. 1 is still in death seclusion. 1 was on a mission by the sect leader 10 years ago and has not returned. There are only these 2 left. Zhuo's expression eased and he said, in other words, they can only send these 2 Fanshu. Thinking, Zhuo asked, if I flee, will these 2 Fanshu meet up with Jiang Zhe? Bihan shook his head. No. Zhuo was very surprised at the certainty in Bihan's answer. Why? If they meet up with Jiang Zhe, wouldn't their chance of victory increase? Fanshu can also die, Bihan said coolly. Zhuo immediately understood. Yes, while a Fanshu was powerful, they could still die. If a powerful battalion did not care about losses, they might be able to kill a Fanshu Xiuzhe. Xiankong Temple did not lack battalions, and would not risk their Fanshu experts on the battlefield. So the mission this time was an assassination. Zhuo also understood why Xiankong Temple would send 2 Fanshu. He had killed Marshal Yu. In the eyes of Xiankong Temple, he was someone that could threaten Fanshu. Xiankong Temple could not afford to lose any Fanshu. Zhuo's eyes lit up. He suddenly found that there might be a chance. Xiankong Temple would not know that someone would have warned him about their assassination mission. After thinking for a long time, Zhuo raised his head and confidence came back to his face. I have an idea. Under the ground, Wei Shen gripped the hilt of the black sword and stopped his breathing. He quickly became like a piece of rock and all signs of life faded from him. Damn it, we lost him again, one person swore. Are we going to keep chasing? Another asked weakly with a thread of fear in his voice. Of course, if we don't, we will all die. But if we catch up to him, we will also die. The group became silent. No, if this continues, we will all die. Then what do we do? Wait. Wait? Wait for Lord to send out a kill warrant. Just as he finished speaking, one person said joyfully, kill warrant, the Lord sent out a kill warrant. This time, he's done for. The person speaking sighed in relief. Yes, he's over. The other people also sighed. When the footsteps vanished, Wei Xing emerged out of the soil and a hint of confusion flashed through his eyes. A kill warrant? He shook his head and didn't think about it. He found a hidden cave, set up some alarm Jinji and entered meditation. 10 continuous days of battle had exhausted his Ling power and mind, both were on the verge of collapse. If it wasn't that his mentality was as strong as steel, he would have fallen a long time ago. On the second day, he opened his eyes, and a hint of joy flashed across them. He had a breakthrough. After recuperating a few more days in the cave and his energies recovered to peak condition, he stood up. Taking out the Jia map jade scroll, he found his bearing and then flew in a direction. He didn't know what the kill warrant was. He didn't know that that kill warrant was causing a storm in the 100 Savage realm. What? They suddenly sped up. Marshal Hao was slightly surprised. They didn't change their destination. No, the middle-aged man said. It seems that they have already detected it. Marshal Hao did not speak. He was deep in thought. A moment later, he raised his head. It seems that Xiao Mo Gu already knows who their enemy is. Oh, have our people stopped the harassment? Stop the harassment? The middle-aged person was surprised. Isn't that just? It's nothing. Marshal Hao sneered. We aren't Xian Kong Temple's subordinates, we don't need to give them too much face. Xian Kong Temple probably won't have an easy time in this fight. The middle-aged man didn't understand why father would say such a thing. Xiao Mo Gu is really daring. A hint of admiration flashed through Marshal Hao's eyes. Why this direction? Zhuo Mo asked in confusion to Pu Yao and Wei. He, Tseng Lianer, and Agui were furiously flying forward. In order to avoid the scouts along the way, they did not ride most steeds but flew on their own. Zhuo Mo had designed an extremely daring plan. He decided to lure the 2 old Fanqiu thieving baldies away in a huge circle. Just like how Xian Kong Temple were not willing to put their Fanqiu in danger, Zhuo Mo was not willing to have these 2 thieving baldies enter the battlefield and affect their chances of victory. Zhuo Mo was full of confidence in Bihan and Gongsun Cha. As long as these 2 old thieving baldies did not attend the battle, Zhuo Mo believed they would win. If Gongsun Cha and Bihan defeated Jiangzhe, it would be enough to cause Xian Kong Temple to descend into chaos. If he could delay until that time, the 2 old thieving baldies would no longer have the time to chase him. They would have to go back to steady the sect and his predicament would be resolved. The crux of this strategy was a race of time. On his end, the longer that he could drag this out, the more beneficial it would be. The other side with Gongsun Cha and Bihan, the faster they defeated Jiangzhe, the safer he would be. If he had to face the 2 old Fanqiu thieving baldies head-on, Zhuo Mo definitely did not have a chance. But if he was playing hide-and-seek, Zhuo Mo did not fear it. With Pu Yao and Wei present, these 2 cunning people, Zhuo Mo thought that the 2 old thieving baldies wouldn't stand a chance. In order to lure the 2 old thieving baldies to take the bait, Zhuo Mo had deliberately left behind a trace of Shen power. Last time, the 4 great sects with Lin Qian as the leader had made such a big ruckus for the great peace Mo steel. Zhuo Mo knew that these people had an obsession with Shen power. He hadn't thought that having just stepped out of the camp, Pu Yao and Wei had Zhuo Mo flying in this direction. Zhuo Mo muttered inside, there was a conspiracy. Chapter 665, Pu Yao and Wei's conspiracy for Fanqiu Xiuzhe. Sneaking into the guarded camp was slightly troublesome, but if the other was not on guard, the chance of success was very high. The other had not been on guard. The 2 entered the camp without any resistance. A moment later, Dai Tao's expression became strange. He's not here. Ji Zheng did not show any expression. Dai Tao's attire was like that of an average xiu. People would find it hard to deduce what kind of xiuzhe he was based on his attire. Ji Zheng was the exact opposite. Bald head, prayer beads, monk robes, he looked like a stereotypical Dainana xiu at first glance. The only thing that would cause people to take notice was that granite and icy face. It didn't have the harmonious air of Diana Xiao. Instead it was cold and murderous, inspiring fear in the onlooker. Dai Tao was not from Xian Kong Temple. He was a roaming Xiao. In order to break through to Fanxiu, he had joined Xian Kong Temple. Xian Kong Temple's enormous resources and the great and famed collection of records had been of great help to him. He had successfully entered Fanxiu, and became one of the elders of Xian Kong Temple. Ji Zheng was a true disciple of Xian Kong Temple. His parents had been disciples of Xian Kong Temple. He had grown up from birth in the temple. Outstandingly talented, he had been one of the disciples that the sect had focused their resources in raising. He himself was a cultivation fanatic and didn't have any interest in other matters. His mind was pure, and his cultivation path could be said to have been a smooth one without facing any major obstacles. Ji Zheng suddenly turned his head and walked into a corner. When he stepped onto the grass, that emotionless face changed for the first time. His eyes lit up. Shin power. Shin power. Dai Tao paused. When he walked to this place, his expression also changed to shock. Such pure Shin power. Does this boy have a complete Shin power inheritance? We chase him. Ji Zheng said decisively. Dai Tao hesitated. If they took the chance to kill Bihan, it would be a destructive blow against the enemy. However, he quickly suppressed this thought. In comparison, Xiao Mo Guess Shin power inheritance was more attractive to him. Shin power inheritance. His mind heated slightly. If he was able to obtain the Shin power inheritance, maybe he could enter dashing level. Dashing. The highest level of cultivation and representing the strongest power in the world. How many years had it been since a dashing expert appeared? Dai Tao was actually satisfied with having reached Fanxiu. However, he understood that without Xian Kong Temple, he would not have been able to do it. Consequently, he hadn't had any thoughts about the distant dashing stage. But this Shin power inheritance that suddenly appeared now gave him a thread of hope. Xian Kong Temple had studied Shin power for a long time. Dai Tao was one of the most powerful in the temple and had participated in the process. While Xian Kong Temple had not produced any results up until now, Shin power had been found to be a higher power than Ling power. For normal Xiuzhe, this was nothing. The cultivation of Ling power itself was already an endeavor vast as the ocean and endless as the sky. But for Xiuzhe like them that had almost reached the top level of the Xiuzhe system, it was tempting. The two quickly disappeared. Multiple breaths later, a figure slowly formed from empty space near where the two had been. It was Luo Li. 2 hours later. Xiao Mo Guess Battalion started to mobilize. Full speed ahead. Now tell me why we are going in this direction. Zhuo Mo glowered at Pu Yao and Wei. Aha, Ji isn't so easy to fool. You two lowly cunning, shady, and shameless people. Do not think you can do such unspeakable things behind my back. Zhuo Mo's speech was both urgent and fast. However, the two in front of him clearly would not be defeated by words of this degree. It is a good thing. Wei smiled harmlessly. It is not so easy to avoid Fanxiu. Threat. Pu Yao was definitely threatening him. However, the thick-skinned and black-hearted Xiao Mo Gu was immune to threats like this. He sneered. Everyone's on the same boat, what's the use in scaring me? You guys can escape if I don't. This time, it really is a good thing. Wei still had a friendly smile. Zhuo Mo glanced at Pu Yao. He wondered inside, this guy hadn't argued with him today, it wasn't normal. What? Zhuo Mo responded. Actually, in the past, we did leave behind some things. Wei hesitated but still spoke. Zhuo Mo stilled but then his eyes flashed like Jingshi. Whoa whoa whoa. Jingshi. Oh, Ma Bei. Or the legendary 1,000-year treasure hoard. You were so strong in the past, the riches you gathered, oh. Rich. Haha. In the sea of consciousness, Mo danced excitedly. Riches. Wei's expression was dazed. I knew he would be like this, Puyao said expressionlessly. After being calm for a moment, Puyao's tendons visibly bulged up. His forced expression of calm became twisted. There seemed to be an angry fire burning in his bloody pupil that increased. His teeth ground like millstones. He was clearly angry to his limit. It isn't riches. Mo stopped. His face was full of disappointment as he muttered, not riches, that really disappoints me. Ah, you two were famous people in the past, to be poor to this point, tsk. Shut up. Puyao's anger that he had been suppressing immediately erupted as he shouted, you idiot. Dumbass. You stupid idiot that only knows to laze about, eating and waiting to die. Such humiliation. I actually have a student like you. This is such a great humiliation. What do you understand? Ah. The world. We were fighting for the world, dominating in all directions. Our desires, wishes, how can you who only knows money understand? The furious Puyao ignited the flames in Mo's sea of consciousness. The dark red fires filled the sky and Puyao was like a furious god. Mo's face was puzzled. He looked at Puyao in the sky that was pointing down and swearing at him. He murmured unconsciously, what is this? The light words caused the flames to completely still and Puyao's shouts to be choked off. Puyao was like a deflated ball that flew down without a sound. The fires that burned disappeared. Puyao and Wei abandoned the puzzled Mo and went to whisper to each other. Wei said calmly, I just knew that this occasion would be the rest. Puyao's anger roiled. A waste of all this. To have encountered such a master without any ambition. They are really pitiful, the most pitiful in history. Wei hit the target with one sentence. Ambition. It isn't the first time that he was just eating and waiting for death. Puyao was discontent. All the things that we had done, so much preparation to leave for. Wei said calmly, we do not have any other choices. Puyao gritted. The great. I'm going to die of anger. No. How can he benefit without paying a price? Wei looked at Puyao who was about to go off again and said calmly, he probably doesn't want this benefit. Puyao seemed to think of something and snickered. That isn't up to him. Wei heard something. What do you plan on doing? Puyao didn't answer and asked in response, what kind of person do you think he is? Wei did not hesitate. Lazy, eats and waits for death, dislikes work, greedy, thick-skinned, and black-hearted. Puyao thought as he asked, when will he ever actually put effort into doing something? Wei said directly, when there is no other choice and he has to do it. Oh, in other words, if we want him to do something, this matter has to leave him no avenue of retreat, no choice left and he has to do it. Puyao concluded. You mean? Puyao's bloody pupil flashed with an unusual light. He. Wei nodded. Understood. How about it? Puyao glanced at Wei. Do it. Wei was brisk. Are you now unfamiliar with what has to be done? I have to familiarize myself. It really makes one's blood boil. Suddenly, Mo had a bad feeling. Then he saw Puyao and Wei who had been whispering off to the side turn to look at him and grin darkly. Mo shuddered. Were those two planning something else? Mo thought. The two had already turned around and did not seem to intend to pay any more attention to him. Mo suppressed the impulse to ask and left his sea of consciousness. He would not get any answers. It would be safer to stay away from these two. Of course, most importantly, it wasn't riches. After hearing that it wasn't riches, Mo immediately lost interest in what Puyao was talking out. He was very wealthy now, anti-dragon claw, 3,000 threads of worry, these two were top treasures. He had also been enriched after killing Marshal Yes Group. The black-hearted treasure coins, the blue carp sword, all of them were powerful MO weapons. There were numerous materials, dozens of MO skills that were all first tier. So Zhuo Mo didn't have any interest in the property that Pu Yao and Wei spoke of. Also, he knew that the things these two offered were not easy to take. Right now, he only wanted to go to Nether Springs Jia, investigate his origins, and settle his scores. After doing that, he would manage his own territories, make Jingshi and live a carefree existence. Since he now had an enormous territory that was enough for people to have pretty good days, he had not failed them, Zhuo Mo thought happily. Zhuo Mo quickly shrugged off the scenes of the beautiful future and recovered his calmness. The fight right now was directly related to their future. If they won, they would jump into the position as one of the strongest battalions in the world. No one would easily start a fight with them. They would have an open road and they would push Xian Kong Temple down into a place where they would not be able to get back up from. But if they lost? No, they definitely could not lose. For Xian Kong Temple, this was a battle they could not lose. For Zhuo Mo's group, this was also a battle they could not lose. This was a battle that they could not retreat from nor avoid. Zhuo Mo became alert and started to ponder if his plans had any weaknesses. At this time, Zhuo Mo was focusing all his effort and gave off endless spirit. His belly full of black water was not willing to stay hidden. He had to make some trouble for Xian Kong Temple. Chapter 666, The World Stunned. Really, what Xiuzha dares to be so arrogant? They have come to our MO territories to show off. It is a sword show, a vicious one that has killed more than 1,000 people. More than 1,000. They are just boasting. Do you think that killing MO is like killing chickens? You don't understand. For an expert, it is easier to kill people than to kill chickens. Che, even the strongest expert is nothing in front of a battalion. True, but think about it. A sword show has come to our territories. If we have to mobilize a battalion to deal with just one sword show, tell me, isn't it embarrassing? Ah, a little bit. What about our MO experts? Have they all died? How can they let the Xiuzha show off on our land? He won't be able to do it for much longer. The kill order has been sent down. It is really a tragedy about that Jia master. He had surrounded the other, yet the other had managed to flee, especially after his subordinates were mostly killed. This guy is a joke now. Ha! He surrounded the other yet let the other run away. This bad? It really is embarrassing. Ha! That sword show better not come here, otherwise. The MO that spoke suddenly stopped. He was looking straight ahead and stood motionless. What? His partner was slightly puzzled and instinctively looked in that direction as well. He was immediately stunned. A figure holding a sword slowly approached in the horizon. Wei Sheng looked at the city in front of him. He gripped the black sword in his hand. There was no fear on his face. He ignored the gazes filled with hatred and enmity as he walked straight towards the city gates. Did you hear? That sword show has come here. He wants to challenge the experts of this Jia in search of a defeat. TSK, look how dominant his words are, in search of a defeat. Is this guy crazy? Crazy? He's very smart. He made a big fuss and will only fight with you in the open. What, you don't dare to accept this? He has offended everyone with this action, but who can swallow the anger if someone challenged them directly? If they cannot defeat this guy in honest open combat, they won't have any face. It would be extremely shameful for anyone to do something from the shadows now. However, this sword show won't be able to escape now. He can only keep winning. If he loses, he will die. His courage to force such a situation is admirable. TSK, this is going to attract attention. I hadn't thought that even Xiuzha would have heroes like this. The news that a sword show was challenging the MO experts spread like wildfire. Those who heard it for the first time almost didn't dare to believe the years. The history of hatred between Xiuzha and MO could not be narrated in 10 whole days. Now a sword show had run into the MO territories and publicly challenged MO experts. It wasn't that Shouja never sneaked into the MO territories, but that every person who did so would disguise themselves as MO and be careful in fear they would be discovered. Something like a person publicly entering the MO territories along and challenging all experts had never happened before. Mad, arrogant, doesn't have a measure of himself. All kinds of judgments, the most evil curses, they came from the mouths of people. Everyone was waiting to mock him and see how the MO experts would tear this horrid sword show into pieces. In the first match, the sword show won. The MO watching were slightly shocked. In the second match, the sword show won. The MO almost didn't believe their eyes. In the third match, the sword show won. The MO started to quiet. 10 matches with no defeats. Wei Xing stood on the stage and gazing down proudly as he gripped his sword. The MO that were below the stage had ashen faces. It was completely silent. No MO had the bravery to get onto the stage. Wei Xing became famous. On the second day, the result of this battle spread into every corner of the 100 Savage Realm as though it had wings. 100 Savage Realm was in a furor. In the history of the MO, they had never appeared so disheveled. Facing the gazes of enmity in the surroundings, Wei Xing's sword heart was unaffected. He knew that this was the start. The further he went, the stronger the experts would be. However, he had finally escaped the endless pursuit of enemies. He had thought for a long time before deciding on his plan of action, publicly exposing himself in such an attention-catching manner. Wei Xing was not cunning, but he was not a stupid person. He knew that his arrogant actions would infuriate the MO, but this was also his goal. When all gazes of the 100 Savage Realm gathered on him, those methods in the dark could not be used. The MO would not accept that. There was only one way that would not cause them to lose face, defeating him openly and fairly. The more influence this matter had, the safer he was. But at the same time, his opponents would become stronger and he would be in more danger. However, he did not fear it at all. In his view, the stronger the opponent, the more it could refine his sword essence. He walked step by step towards Nether Springs Jia, and refined his sword essence. No matter how far he walked, it was like he always had his back against a precipice. A situation with no hope. When Wei Xing used this kind of decisiveness to challenge all of the MO territories, how could the world not be stunned? Zhuo Mo, Agui, and Seng Lianer were carefully hiding. Pu Yao really was skilled in committing devious acts. He had given over several methods to hide and conceal their tracks. Along the way, he had occasionally pointed out to Zhuo Mo what they needed to pay attention to. Pu Yao's great experience was completely shown. Zhuo Mo suspected that this guy had frequently done things that could not be seen in the light of day. Zhuo Mo and the others constantly changed directions and would purposefully leave behind some marks to confuse their pursuers along the way. Dai Tao and Ji Zheng were to be pitied for the hardship they encountered. The two had high cultivation, but they were not skilled in this field. Dai Tao was a roaming show to start, but his luck had been good and he had entered an outer sect of Xian Kong Temple very early on. He usually taught sect disciples. Ji Zheng's experience in this area was almost zero. The number of times he had stepped outside of the gates of Xian Kong Temple could be counted on the fingers. His experience with the world was almost nothing. After Zhuo Mo had led them in circles for 3 days, the two finally understood that cultivation strength could not solve all problems. The two immediately sent a message back to the sect, but the two had not discovered that Zhuo Mo knew of their presence. Zhuo Mo's actions seemed very suspect, but could also mean that he had some secret aim. If there wasn't a secret goal, why would Zhuo Mo leave the battalion at this time? The news that the two of them had come was a well-kept secret. Not many knew. In their minds, there was no possibility of this matter having leaked. When Xian Kong Temple received the information, they quickly acted. A middle-aged person that was short and of a lowly appearance stood respectfully in front of the two and didn't dare to even breathe. Behind the middle-aged person were 5 young disciples. However, these young disciples were slightly excited. These two in front of them were of ancestor level in Xian Kong Temple. If they served the two well, the elder was happy and might bestow them something that would be enough for them to live off for their entire life. This kind of chance was something that could not be found by chance. What are you called? Are you skilled in tracking? Dai Tao asked. This one is called Hui Bao, and knows some tracking spells. The middle-aged man answered nervously. Dai Tao saw Hui Bao's nervousness and nodded. Do you know the mission this time? This one does not know. The sect only said for this one to attend to the instructions of the two elders, Hui Bao carefully answered. We are pursuing a great criminal of the sect. However, this person is extremely cunning. Your mission is to find him, Dai Tao said. Yes. Hui Bao hurried to acknowledge. This place has tracks he left behind. Start here. Finishing, Dao Tai went to the side and closed his eyes to rest. Hui Bao laid on the ground. He sniffed and then closed his eyes. His right hand suddenly lit up. The light quickly scanned the ground. He took a handful of powder from his 100 treasures pouch. Moments later, the powder disappeared into the air and 3 pairs of faint footprints appeared on the previously blank ground. Dai Tao was slightly surprised but he did not interrupt. Hui Bao, who had been extremely subservient before, seemed to be a completely different person now with a calm expression and confidence. Hui Bao carefully inspected the footprints and concluded after a few moments, there are 3 people, one is male, the other 2 are female. Dai Tao thought a moment, and the intelligence dossier the sect had given them before they came to mind. He quickly deduced who the other 2 women were. Xiaomo Gu had 2 women with him, one with an ugly appearance and one that was beautiful. The ugly one was of mysterious origins but the beautiful one was the daughter of a little Jia master in a remote part of the territories. Dai Tao nodded. This Hui Bao had some skill as expected. Do you know which direction then went in? Dai Tao couldn't resist asking. Darren, please wait for a moment. Hui Bao beckoned at a disciple. The disciple hurried forward and handed over a beast service card. This beast service card was just half the size of a palm and engraved with a small beast. Moments later, a strange beast appeared, a fluffy furred puppy. What was most attention-catching was its pair of glass-like eyes were unusually bright. Dai Tao's eyes lit up. Is it a glass-eyed canine? Glass-eyed canes were just 4th-grade Ling beast but it was not easy to raise them. What was most unique about the glass-eyed canines were that its eyes were extremely powerful and it could see many things that normal people could not. It was also highly intelligent and liked by hunters. Dai Tao had seen it mentioned before in a record and so recognized it with a glance. Darren is wise. Hui Bao hurriedly flattered. The glass-eyed canine just out of Hui Bao's arms. The glass-like eyes suddenly lit up. It looked around and then suddenly shot in one direction. Darren, that direction. Hui Bao hurriedly shouted. He then chased after the glass-eyed canine. Dai Tao was overjoyed and followed tightly after. Ji Zheng followed expressionlessly but his movements were not slow. The two only thought of one thing at this moment, obtaining the Shin power inheritance. Even though they did not communicate, both of them decided that they couldn't have the Shin power inheritance land in other people's hands. At this time, something suddenly happened. Chapter 667, Nasty. The glass-eyed canine running ahead of them suddenly wailed. He faltered and tumbled on the ground. Hui Bao was shocked and hurried next to the glass-eyed canine. The glass-eyed canine was laying lifelessly on the ground. Hui Bao's face immediately turned white and a word flashed through his mind, trap. The other had set up traps along the road. Hui Bao immediately felt this was troublesome. People would rarely set up traps when they were trying to escape. Only those experienced, cunning, and malicious experts would be so careful and so nasty. Expert. Hui Bao did not make a sound but he straightened. Fighting spirit emanated from his short and low body. While his status in the temple was not high, he was still very proud of his skills. In these years, he had never failed before. What is it? Dai Tao looked at the glass-eyed canine and asked. The other has set a trap, Hui Bao said gravely. A hint of pain flashed through his eyes. It was not easy to raise a glass-eyed canine, and this was his only one. A trap. Dai Tao was shocked. Do they know that someone is following them? I'm not sure. Hui Bao shook his head. The power of a trap like this is not high. They are mostly used against ling beasts. Experienced experts usually will set up traps like this behind them just in case. If they were actually prepared for pursuers, the trap would be more powerful. Dai Tao understood. What Hui Bao said was rational. But what he didn't know was that Zhuo Mo knew that it would be Fanshu Xiuzhe that were chasing him. What traps could be effective against Fanshu? He gave up on those unrealistic ideas and targeted the ling beasts that would appear. This was also Pu Yao's suggestion. Hui Bao's expression was serious as he beckoned to another disciple, give me the 10,000 lire disc. The disciple carefully presented a disc to Hui Bao. The disc was completely black and had been carved from an unknown black stone. It was covered in strange seal scripts. Hui Bao took the disc, bit his finger and drew a seal script on the disc. His expression was stern as he chanted. The motionlessly needle on the disc slowly started to move. Moments later, it stopped and pointed in a direction. A direction that was the complete opposite of the one before. As expected of an expert. Hui Bao's eyes became even brighter. Xiao Mo Gu and Jiang Zhe, the famed battle general of Xian Kong Temple, were going to fight to the death. Such explosive news created a great wave in the 100 Savage realm in a flash. While Jiang Zhe was not as powerful as Gu Liang Dao, he had been the first battle general to defeat and conquer Mo Jie. Xiao Mo Ge's fame had skyrocketed up in this past while, defeating the Ming bandits and the Yu frontier guards. He also had a glorious record. This was truly a match of the strong against the strong. After the sky-splitting calamity, the Xiuzhe camp had successively achieved victories with many battle generals. On the other hand, the Mo had been unable to muster an appropriate response. The major factions of Mo maintained their silence. They naturally had their own considerations, but for the Mo people, they felt shamed. But they could not argue against the truth. The battle between Xiao Mo Gu and Jiang Zhe immediately attracted the eyes of all of the 100 Savage realm. Xiao Mo Ge's reputation had grown and he was clearly the representative of the new generation of battle generals. However, in the eyes of the public, he still lacked a major victory. Defeating the Ming bandits and Marshal Yu was enough to make a splash in the Mo territories. But a victory against those outsider was even more important in the eyes of the Mo people. A long sequence of defeats and retreats caused the Mo people to have a longing desire for victory. Almost all of the 100 Savage of the Dark was hoping that Xiao Mo Gu could defeat Jiang Zhe. Victory, only victory would count. The gaze of the 100 Savage of the Dark gathered on Xiao Mo Ge's battalion. When the news spread, the route that Xiao Mo Ge's battalion took immediately became free of obstacles. The major factions along the route moved out of the way. They even enthusiastically offered all kinds of help, free supplies, resources to recruit more soldiers. This battle was exaggerated to the point that it became, in many people's eyes, a battle of life and death that could decide the fates of Mo and Xiuzhe. After the repeated losses, the desire of the Mo toward victory started to burn under the influence of the spark that Zhuo Mo through Utmo innately liked to fight. Their desire to fight was something that Xiuzhe found hard to understand. Many Mo warriors rushed in from all directions in hope that they could participate in this battle. The number was tens of times greater than the previous wave that had come. Multiple Mo marshals publicly expressed their support of Xiao Mo Gu. Intelligence of all kinds flowed and gathered on Gongsun Cha and Bihan's hands. At the same time, Jiang Zhe, who had wanted to focus on preparing for the battle, found that the number of scouts in the surroundings had suddenly increased and small-scale skirmishes also increased. The Mo in his surroundings had seen the chance to make things difficult for Xian Kong Temple. We cannot defeat you, but we could harass you and not give Jiang Zhe the chance to prepare in peace. Many little factions teamed up and went to harass Jiangzhi's forces. Many people started to talk about how the Xiuzha had hunted Yao Ma in bloody sky metropolis Jie. They called on the Mo to hunt Xiu. Some Mo even called on Yao to ally together to fight Xian Kong Temple. The 100th Savage of the Dark was extremely busy. The affair turned into a wildfire in a flash. The pressure of Xian Kong Temple increased greatly. Zhuo Mo, Agui, and Seng Lianer were walking on the street. They had completely changed their appearances and no one could recognize them on the street. The mirage of Xiao Mo Gu and Marshal Ye's fight had spread through the entire 100th Savage of the Dark, and it would be trouble if they were recognized. But at this time, Zhuo Mo was feeling smug. As the mastermind behind this string of events, he naturally felt smug about the situation. He had been the one to spread the news about so-called fight between Xiao Mo Gu and Jiangzhi. But he hadn't thought that the Mo would react so fiercely and the response was beyond his expectations. His original intention was to make things difficult for Xian Kong Temple. The present situation was very beneficial for Gongsun Cha and the others. They now had popular support, the advantage of home territory. This fight attracted the attention of all Mo. No one would dare to act against them in fear of the world's anger. Just how much support Xiao Mo Gu had could be seen by Marshal Hao's public action. He had been the first to publicly support Xiao Mo Gu. Even more detailed and accurate Jia maps, guides that were willing to fight, those were all advantageous to Gongsun Cha. The Mo Jia occupied by Jiangzhi's forces would also rebel when they heard the news. While all this could not overwhelm Jiangzhi, it would take up a bit of his strength. An advantage was built up slowly like this. At this time, no one doubted Xiao Mo Gu's identity. Was it a joke? How could a Xiuzha fight against Jiangzhi? Of course he is a Mo, a pure male Mo, only they would have this daring. What? He knows Yao arts. Yao! You dare to fight for Xiao Yu with us? You don't want to live? Hearing this, Zhuo Mo smiled. He asked Pu Yao, would those two old thieving baldies have lost our trail? Thinking about what he had set up along the way, even he felt uncertain. Nasty, too nasty. Pu Yao's endless tricks really broadened his knowledge. He was now worried that the two old thieving baldies had lost his trail and would return to make trouble for Gongsun Cha and the others. That would not good. One of the key points of this battle was that he would be able to keep the two old thieving baldies occupied. Do not underestimate Xian Kong Temple. Pu Yao snorted at Zhuo Mo's words. Hui Bao's face was covered in dust and had a terrible expression. Up until now, he had lost 6 Ling beasts. The number of Ling beasts he lost in the past 5 years was not as many as what he lost in this one day. The others' moves were not mainstream measures. There were some primitive and nasty setups that he could not guard against and he had continuously fallen for. If he wasn't experienced and unusually sensitive, he would have lost the trail a long time ago. But even so, he didn't have any confidence. The other definitely was more experienced than he was. Even more importantly, the other was nastier and more cunning than he was. The other had used uncanny traps, one interlocking with another, and every time, it was different. If the other's targets were people, he would have died long ago. In dealing with traps, what people fought with was not just technique but mental strength. Hui Bao knew that he had completely lost on that level. The only confidence he had was the 2 elders beside him. The 2 elders definitely would not watch as he was killed. Dai Tao's expression was also unwell. He saw Hui Bao's disheveled state. He had actually been pushed into such a panic by a junior. He was not in a good mood. On the other hand, Ji Zheng had been expressionless from beginning to end as though he was not affected by the incidents at all. Hui Bao suddenly exhaled. His gaze landed on the distant city. It's here. Dai Tao turned to ask Hui Bao. Yes. Darren. Hui Bao said respectfully. They are inside this city. But what? There are many people in the city and it is hard to pinpoint them. Hui Bao trailed off. There is no need for such trouble. Dai Tao smiled. Finishing, he looked towards Ji Zheng. Please, Shi Xiang, force them out. Ji Zheng nodded expressionlessly and suddenly flew into the sky. He looked down at the sky from the sky. People were as small as ants. Ji Zheng raised a palm upright and shouted clearly, Ma. In this moment, the air within hundreds of li suddenly froze. A terrifying presence pressed down towards the city below. The entire city seemed to freeze in that moment. People instinctively looked towards the figure in the sky. Terror uncontrollably possessed every corner of their body. Their hands and feet felt cold and their minds were blank. A Diana light swept the entire city like a wave. When the Diana light lit up, Zhuo Mo's expression suddenly changed. Damn it! He hadn't expected the other would not care at all and challenge the entire city. The Diana light gave him a feeling of extreme danger. Chapter 668, Ji Zheng. The Diana light was soundless and serene like a ripple in the water. Detecting danger, Zhuo Mo shouted, scatter. Finishing, he shot up and hurriedly flew out of the city. Tsing Lianer understood and immediately flew in another direction. Zhuo Mo turned around and found Agui following tightly behind him. He suddenly panicked. Agui, we need to run in different directions. Agui did not seem to hear and continued to follow him closely. Zhuo Mo felt both moved and panicked. If they split up, the two would chase after him. Agui and Tsing Lianer would then have a chance to escape. But he hadn't thought that Agui would be so stubborn that she would not listen to his words. That caused his plan to fail completely. He then saw a smear of red out of the corner of his eye. It was Tsing Lianer coming back. Tsing Lianer was coming back. Motherfucker. Zhuo Mo was both panicked and angry. These people that did not listen to direction. He felt slightly moved by their loyalty. Zhuo Mo was not surprised that Agui had followed him, but Zhuo Mo was very surprised that Tsing Lianer had also turned around. He was the enemy's target. Tsing Lianer had given up her best chance to escape and chose to fight alongside them. This required great courage. All in. At this time, any other words were extraneous. Zhuo Mo's spirits rose to a peak. He suddenly grabbed his legs and turned into a ball. He somersaulted in the air and his legs suddenly kicked into the air. Bam! It was as though he had pushed against a tangible but invisible block in the air. The wind gusted past him and the sound was explosive and clear. A threat of pain suddenly appeared on Zhuo Mo's face. Even though his Mo physique was stronger now, it could not endure such a high-speed change in momentum. He had pushed off with enormous force. Using this enormous power, Zhuo Mo's body shot out in the opposite direction at an even faster speed to head towards Ji Zheng. His gaze was tightly locked onto Ji Zheng's eye-catching shiny bald head. He disliked thieving baldies the most. Zhuo Mo threw away all stray thoughts. Golden light flashed across his body and Shen power rippled. Agui's body eerily disappeared and then she suddenly appeared in the air next to Zhuo Mo. Tsing Lianer was like a red gust of smoke. She wavered uncertainly and faint after images formed. The three's target was Ji Zheng. It had been a brief moment from the time they had made the decision to run away to the decision to turn back and attack. In the eyes of Dai Tao and the others, Zhuo Mo and the others running away was the normal response. They did not find it strange, but when the three suddenly switched to a counterattack, they were caught off guard. Xiuzhe of Fanqiu level were of high status in any sect. They either roamed the world in search of rare and precious things, or they were in seclusion in search of a higher level. If a situation was not forced to the very end, the sect would not rely on such great power, much less in a top sect like Xian Kong Temple that had so many experts. It had been decades since the two had fought. Due to this, they were unprepared for the trio's escape turning suddenly into an attack. If this was a usual time, facing such a great difference in power, this bit of unpreparedness would not be of any effect. The two Fengsis minds were not affected by this. Their minds had been hardened and their confidence in their power had been engraved into their bones. They were overjoyed rather than shocked. If Suemo and the others chose to flee, they could only choose to chase Suemo and risk the other two escaping. Now the three had decided to stay. In the eyes of these two, it was like moths heading for the flame, seeking death. Ji Zheng snorted coldly. His upraised hand moved towards his other hand, his palms pressed together in a prayer position. His expression was solemn as he chanted. A golden lotus blossomed under his feet. Countless petals fell. A peaceful and serene presence that could permeate people's minds formed and an imperceptible murmur of chanting disturbed people's concentration. Suemo felt his rippling Shin power suddenly stop. Without being conscious of it, his fighting spirit weakened. He immediately felt fear. The old thieving Baldi wasn't simple to have a weapon that could subdue people without a fight. If this was in the past, Suemo would have been greatly affected by the disturbance of the Dhyana chanting. But ever since he comprehended the steel text, his control over his Shin power was much greater even if it had not grown by much. Suemo protected his mind. The pure and burning Shin power furiously circulated through his body. When the flower petals that fell came near him, they would explode into fragments. At the same time, the soul-setting divine light that was sleeping in Suemo's body suddenly spun. Suemo immediately felt his body lighten and his mind relax. He hadn't thought that the soul-setting divine light would have such a use. Suemo was overjoyed and his spirits rose. That bald head in his field of view grew closer. Suemo couldn't help but howl. His arms reached outwards as though to embrace the shiny head. Countless golden lights flashed in the air and flooded towards his hands. In this moment, a thick and vast golden pillar suddenly formed in Suemo's curved arms at an astounding speed. On the golden pillar, there were golden crows that seemed to be alive as they cawed and flapped their wings. Hiss! A streak of crimson shot up along the golden pillar. Golden crow battering ram. At the same time, a cool crescent moon formed behind Xing Lianer's body. Compared to the small crescent of before, the moon was much broader this time. The crescent moon pointed directly at Ji Zheng as though it was a blade. Moon, moon, strike. The purple light in Agui's eyes grew and her body eerily disappeared into the air. Ji Zheng's expression changed slightly. The attacks of the three surpassed his expectations. His Dhyana heart that was still like that of a deep well detected danger and ripples formed. But the disturbed Dhyana heart immediately calmed. Ji Zheng looked down as he chanted. Blinding golden light emanated from his body. In a flash, he was like those intimidating Buddhas covered in golden paint. Great authority Vajrapani Dhyana body. At the same time, the sutra characters on his kasaya seemed to come alive. Sounds of countless people chanting came from the kasaya and gathered into a vast ocean of Dhyana chanting. Golden characters flooded out of Ji Zheng's body and formed a sea of characters. Xian Kong Temple's 8th grade talisman, Sutra Si Kasaya. Suemo felt his vision blur. The sutra characters around Ji Zheng changed constantly. But Suemo was experienced in battle. While he was shocked, he was not panicked. The golden crow battering ram did not change direction and headed powerfully towards that golden sea. Xing Lianer immediately understood Suemo's intentions. She controlled the moon crescent to follow behind the golden crow battering ram and struck. When the golden crow battering ram hit the sea of sutra characters, the burning red flow along the pillar suddenly exploded. Everywhere it passed, the sutra characters started to burn as though they were made of paper. And having overcome the resistance, the golden crow battering ram smashed down. Dong! A deep sound exploded in people's minds. In the hundreds of li, everyone's minds shook. Those that were weaker felt restless and wanted to throw up. Suemo's golden crow battering ram was like a great and heavy object that smashed through this sea of sutra characters. At this time, Ji Zheng suddenly raised his head and opened his eyes. It was like a Buddha opening his eyes, without joy nor sorrow, the aura of authority as great as the ocean. His hands moved apart and slowly slapped towards the golden crown battering ram coming towards him. The unstoppable golden crow battering ram was stopped by this seemingly normal movement. The palm that seemed to be smelted from golden liquid stopped that enormous golden crow battering ram completely. This all happened in a flash. Dai Tao hadn't thought that the trio's attacks would all be focused on Ji Zheng. But he did not panic. He had absolute confidence in Ji Zheng's strength. Ji Zheng Shixiang usually was secluded and only thought of dhyana cultivation. Outsiders would not know, but as another Fanqiu of Xian Kong Temple, Dai Tao knew Ji Zheng Shixiang's strength better than other people. Ji Zheng Shixiang was stronger than he was. Ji Zheng Shixiang that was raised in Xian Kong Temple had a sturdier foundation from when he began cultivating. His accumulation at each level was much better. When this reached Fanqiu, this advantage became evident. Dai Tao always held some admiration about this. Looking at Xiao Mo guest group concentrating their attacks on Ji Zheng Shixiang, he was not panicked and smiled coldly inside. They were seeking their own deaths. Shin power. Is only so. A thread of disappointment flashed across Ji Zheng's eyes. This golden crow battering ram was powerful, but it was far from the power that he thought it would have. Was the power of Shin power only so much? If that was the case, then this Shin power did not live up to its reputation. Just as this thought formed in Ji Zheng's mind, his eyes suddenly flickered. A cool light flashed along the golden crow battering ram and suddenly struck right in front of him. The light had been following tightly behind the golden crow battering ram and was hidden from view, concealed by the blinding golden light. Ji Zheng's dhyana heart was steady, and when his thoughts shifted, he was able to respond. A handful of grey mist suddenly flew out of the beads hanging on his chest. When the cool moonlight struck the grey mist, it suddenly stilled. Among the grey mist, the cool crescent moon essence was left motionless. 8th grade talisman, mortal thought bead. This string of beads was forged from the common thoughts that he had excised from his mind through cultivation of his dhyana heart. It was connected to his mind and had great abilities. When he sat and chanted every day over decades, he would stroke them to prove his heart. Dai Tao looked interestedly at the fight between the two sides and showed no intentions of joining in. Up until now, Ji Zheng Shixiang was at ease and the enemy had not managed to truly threaten him. Ji Zheng Shixiang was usually proud. He was at the peak of his interest in fighting. If Dai Tao joined in, it would displease Ji Zheng. Suddenly, the motionless golden crow battering ram started to shatter. Black crows suddenly flapped their wings and flew out of the golden crow battering ram. These completely black crows had wisps of flame on their toes. Their eyes were dark red, and there were 3 thin golden feathers on their foreheads that trembled slightly. Their wings spread and their dark red eyes were locked onto Ji Zheng. For some reason Ji Zheng suddenly felt slightly anxious. His attention was completely absorbed by these black crows and did not notice the strange dance-like movements that Zhua Mo was making at this time. From his vantage point, Dai Tao could see the strange movements Zhua Mo was making. His arms were dancing like snakes, his body moving in a strange rhythm. These movements seemed senseless, but for some unknown reason, Dai Tao felt a chill rise from his feet. His expression changed and he blurted out. Shixiang, careful. Chapter 669, Shin Technique. Shin Technique. A term that was so ancient that people had almost forgot it. A term that had suddenly come into Dai Tao's mind. His face immediately turned pale white. The black crow's dark red eyes flashed with eerie light. They seemed to be looking down from on high, their expressions indifferent as though they were gazing at ants. The moment Dai Tao met the eyes of the black crows, his mind turned completely blank. A desolate, cold, and vast presence came at him. His mind was actually stolen for a moment. Zhua Mo's expression was focused and his eyes completely void of emotion. This was the first time he was using a Shin technique and it took all of the Shin power in his body. From the beginning, he knew that the 10 Crow celestial domain would not be an actual threat to Fanqiu Xiuzhe. He was counting on the Shin technique. The Shin techniques that had been lost by the passage of time had astounding power. Compared to the complex and exquisite methods of the three major systems at this time, Shin techniques could be called simple. But this word simple only applied to Zhuo Mo now that he had finally set foot into the doorway to Shin power. Before he had comprehended the great Pièce Mo steel, he had never successfully completed a Shin technique. But after comprehending it, the manipulation of Shin power came naturally. The ancient Shin techniques were simple and ancient but held great power. Even in this era where cultivation was so developed, it was enough for the top shoja to feel jealousy. The power of Shin techniques originated from Shin power. Zhuo Mo had two Shin power inheritances. One was the Green Vine tribe's inheritance that Qing Lin had given him. The other was the Sun tribe's Shin power inheritance. Zhuo Mo had studied the Shin power inheritance of the Sun tribe. The 10 Crow celestial domain and the Sun Shin power could be used together. After the fight against Marshal Yu, Zhuo Mo had spent a lot of effort to merge Shin power into the transformations of his 10 Crow celestial domain. With his present amount of Shin power, he could not use Shin power to fight a full battle like the totems in the ancient era. Even using the most elementary Shin techniques, the Shin power inside him would be quickly used up. For the present Zhuo Mo, the Shin techniques were his trump card. Ji Zheng hadn't thought that Zhuo Mo would use a killing move immediately. Because when one looked at the situation, Ji Zheng was the one at a disadvantage. However, after the fight against Marshal Yu, Zhuo Mo understood the great gap between him and Fanqiu or marshals. If it hadn't been for the anti-dragon claw and the sun crystal seed acting up during that fight, he definitely did not qualify to fight against Marshal Yu. He had advanced greatly in the period of time since, but there was still a large gap between him and a Fanqiu, much less Fanqiu like Ji Zheng who had been at this level for so many years. Zhuo Mo had judged his own abilities correctly from the start. His strategy was effective. Shin technique, Crow Eye. The legend said in the ancient Sun tribe, what they liked to raise the most were black fire crows with red eyes. These fire crows were vicious and wary, and when they flew, it was like an arrow. Their wings would cut the air causing a high-pitched and piercing sound. The sound acted as an alarm for the tribe. The 10 black crows in the air suddenly spread their wings and the light in their dark red eyes brightened. An extremely dissonant sound pierced the eardrums and penetrated people's heads. Under the strange piercing sound, the Ling power around him uncontrollably froze for a moment. Ji Zheng's expression on that golden face finally changed. After entering Fanqiu, the Ling power inside his body had become one with him and he had rid himself of all mortal thoughts. His dhyana heart was clear and open without any distractions. He had almost reached the limit of dhyana cultivation. Even if he was swarmed by 10,000 ghosts and had to enter the cycle of rebirth, the Ling power inside his body would not separate at all from his physical body and mind. In such a case, how could his Ling power go out of control? While Ji Zheng's mind was stunned, the 10 black crows in the air suddenly flapped their wings and dove down at Ji Zheng. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Balls of dark red flames suddenly appeared from their toes and quickly covered their bodies. The 3 slender golden feathers on their foreheads dropped off and floated around them. The 10 dark red streams of light were like 10 arrowheads pointing directly at Ji Zheng. Shin technique. Ji Zheng's pupils suddenly contracted. When he realized what this was, the 10 flows of dark red light almost reached him. The eerie dark red of the black crow's eyes captured people's minds and caused a chill to run through their minds. A feeling of danger that almost consumed him caused every thread of Ling power in Ji Zheng's body to respond unconsciously. The power of a Fanqiu finally was shown at the moment of death. The mortal thought beads that had been hanging from Ji Zheng's neck exploded. Gray mist fell down towards the 10 dark red streams of fire. At this moment of life and death, Ji Zheng did not hesitate to sacrifice the treasure he had forged through many decades. When the first flowing fire black crow blurred into the gray mist, it seemed to land in a bog and its speed quickly decreased. Pew pew pew. The 10 crows all entered the gray mist. When the gray mist came into contact with the flames around the crows, it was like adding cold water to boiling oil and exploded. Pia pia pia. The force from the rattle and pops, like that of fireworks, rushed towards people so quickly they couldn't breathe. The gray mist immediately disappeared. Ji Zheng's expression was grave but without any pain. His eyes were bright as his hands moved. In a moment, he went from the angrily glaring Vajrapani to a venerable one holding a flower. His brow was gentle, his smile as warm as the spring wind. The murderousness immediately dissipated. The lotus flower in his hand was tender and beautiful. Petals fell off the flower and floated towards those fast-approaching black crows. But these seemingly slow flower petals managed to stop these black crows. At this time, the cool moon essence that had been motionless, as if it had been waiting, broke free of the heavily damaged gray mist without any warning and shot at Ji Zheng. This came in a flash. The slowly revolving sea of sutra characters around Ji Zheng suddenly formed a wave of sutra characters that stopped this cool moon essence. Almost at the same time, a light flashed through Tseng Lianer's eyes. Under the crescent moon, her long sleeves danced. Pia, the moon essence that had been stopped by the sutra characters suddenly exploded. The cool moon essence started from within the sutra character sea and spread at a rapid rate. In a moment, the sutra character sea was covered in frost. Moon frost essence. Shen technique. Another Shen technique. Ji Zheng's heart jumped and his expression changed again. How was it possible? How was it possible? When Zuemo had cast his Shen technique, Ji Zheng had been shocked but was able to face it calmly. But when he discovered that Tseng Lianer could also use Shen techniques, he was completely stunned. How was it possible? While the four great sects were still trying to recover Shen power, there were two people here that were able to use Shen techniques. What he didn't know was that Tseng Lianer's Shen power inheritance was more complete than Zuemo's. After restoring the most important part, Tseng Lianer's moon Shen power inheritance was complete. She also had cultivated Shen techniques. His mind became unfocused. Ji Zheng showed a weakness. The frost was like a poison that infected the sutra characters. All of the sutra characters were destroyed and became countless cool moon energies. The sutra Si Kasaya, that Ji Zheng wore also dimmed. It became as gray as withered leaves and slowly crumbled. In an instant, 2 8th-grade treasures were lost but Ji Zheng could not attend to them. At this crucial moment, a 5-colored treasure wheel appeared and managed to stop the moon frost. On the treasure wheel, 5 colors cycled endlessly as it stopped the frost essence. This was Dai Tao coming to the rescue in time. 8th-grade talisman, 5-element manifestation wheel. This talisman had been originally crafted when Dai Tao had still been a roaming show. After he entered Xian Kong Temple, he studied the sutras and reforged it. The treasure wheels had 5 colors that belonged to the 5 elements. There was a different venerable one within each of the elements. The 5-element manifestation will stop the frost essence. The 5 elements circulated and dissipated the power of the moon frost. Ji Zheng relaxed slightly. If they could endure the enemy's attack, they could take back the initiative. He had never expected that they could cultivate Shen techniques. Caught off guard, he had been unprepared. But now, countless records flashed across his mind. Shen techniques were dominant but they also require great expenditure of Shen power. The other would not have the endurance. Wait. An eerie shadow suddenly flashed across Ji Zheng's mind. He was alarmed. There was one other person. Not good. Suddenly, a strange power silently entered his body from his back. Ji Zheng's expression changed. Dai Tao's expression also changed. A Gue appeared behind Ji Zheng like a ghost. Purple energy was visible on her right palm as she pressed it to his back. From the beginning when a Gue had disappeared, she had not appeared until now. Only appearing to deliver a fatal attack. Ji Zheng's body shook and the golden color on his face faded at a visible rate. At this time, the flower petals stopping the black crow burned up and turned to ash. There were 3 black crows left. Red light flashed through the 3 black crows. They turned into 3 streams of light that accurately hit Ji Zheng, who had lost the protection of the Sutra Sea. Ji Zheng's body abruptly started to burn. No one noticed that the 9 slender golden feathers around the black crows entered Ji Zheng's body like needles. Shi Xiang! Dai Tao frantically shouted. After the successful attack, Zhou Mo did not linger and shouted, "Run!" Before he finished, a hand appeared behind his neck. A Gui had appeared like a ghost behind him and grabbed his neck. He felt his eyes blur and then found someone beside him. Tsing Lianer was grabbed by the neck like he was by a Gui's other hand. Tsing Lianer's face was slightly pale. Using that Shin technique had taken all of her power. The two smiled at each other. Detecting the sincerity in Zhou Mo's smile, an emotion that was not there in the past, Tsing Lianer felt happier. Boom! An intimidating Ling power vibration came from behind them. Shocked, Zhou Mo turned to look back. A faint Buddha figure that was hundreds of zhang tall appeared where they had been. The authoritative Buddha glittered with golden light. A vast Ling power vibration caused Zhou Mo's expression to change drastically. That Buddha figure stared at Zhou Mo with an indifferent gaze. Zhou Mo felt his heart seize. Suddenly, a Gui increased in speed. The purple energy flashed and Zhou Mo finally felt the pressure decrease. Ji Zheng was covered by the Buddha figure. The golden feathers that had entered his body were forced out and turned to powder. The Buddha's figure also disappeared. Ji Zheng's complexion was pale. Looking at the rock that had shattered into multiple pieces and lost all light, after having been unaffected by losing so many other talismans, he finally showed pain for the first time. The ultimate treasure of Xian Kong Temple, Buddha relic, had saved his life. He suddenly raised his head and said to Dai Tao, "Do not give chase." Dai Tao was shocked. While Jizheng Shixiang was injured, the enemy had no power to fight back. Even if he was alone, he could capture the 3. Ji Zheng said coolly, "The Shin power that last woman cultivates is famed." Chapter 670, 26 years ago a Gui was extremely fast. But what surprised Zhou Mo was that the 2 old thieving bandits did not chase after them. The last attack by the Buddha manifestation had scared little Mo Gu to the point his little heart stopped beating. It had also killed the little bit of hope that he felt. If they managed to kill one, then escaping would be much easier. Even when Zhou Mo thought of it now, their attacks had been flawless. No matter if it was individual performance or their teamwork, it was the best they could do. But that cold-faced old thieving Baldy was so powerful it almost surpassed the imagination, and he was even harder to deal with than Marshal Yu. The 3 of them were much stronger than when they had fought Marshal Yu. He and Tsing Lianer had both used a Shin technique, and a Gui's ambush had been wondrous. But even so, the 3 of them working together could not finish off the cold-faced old thieving Baldy. The old thieving Baldy's great talismans were much more powerful than Marshal Yu's. The great wealth of Xian Kong Temple could be seen. Zhou Mo had become used to seeing the dominance that came with incontestable power. But this battle reminded Zhou Mo of the importance of talismans. Thinking about the endless chase that would be coming, Zhou Mo decided. Wasn't it just competing with riches? While we aren't as wealthy as Xian Kong Temple, we are not poor. He started to search his ring. Zhou Mo had to say after digging around that he did have a lot of good things. The broken arrow from the Archer tribe, the fragments of Eastern Water tribe's treasure, Heaven's summoning bell, the Nether Ghost core of the Nether Ghost tribe, the golden leaf, the jade hook tree, the yin-yang null polarity bead, the corpse sea bamboo, the tears of the mist people, the blackheart treasure coins, the green carp tongue sword. Zhou Mo's confidence increased and he immediately felt his spine straighten. The spring wind blew, the battle drums beat, who's afraid of whose talismans? Having found a safe place, a Gui stopped fleeing. Zhou Mo carefully set up Jinji and hid their traces. The 3 began meditating to recover their energy. 4 hours later, Zhou Mo was the first to recover. His right hand could constantly provide Shin power. At this time, the small amount of Shin power it provided greatly increased his recovery speed. After a while, Agui and Tseng Lianer also opened their eyes. Zhou Mo took out all kinds of materials, talismans, and Mo weapons, and arranged them in rows. See what can be used, pick what you want. Tseng Lianer's exquisite face showed shock. The ground was covered in materials, talismans, and Mo weapons that all gave off different lights. It dazzled the eyes. The cave's walls reflected rainbow light. Agui grabbed the nether ghost core and the corpse sea bamboo. Zhou Mo was slightly shocked. He hadn't thought that Agui would pick these two. Even Qing Lin hadn't known how to use the nether ghost core. The corpse sea bamboo was an extremely dark talisman. Tseng Lianer was not polite and picked the green carp tongue sword and some blood thunder beads. The blood thunder beads had been taken from Wu Ye's personal items and there were 16 beads. Unlike the Xiuzhe who would usually possess all kinds of talismans, Mo would usually only have 1 or 2 Mo weapons. But when Zhou Mo saw the blood thunder beads, his eyes lit up. He reached out a hand. Give me a blood thunder bead. Tseng Lianer handed a blood thunder bead as he requested. The blood thunder bead was about the size of a thumb, the color of wine red, its surface reflective but the bead was translucent. A line of silver slowly curving over the surface of the bead as though it was alive and gave people a feeling of extreme evilness. Feeling the blood thunder bead in his hand, Zhou Mo managed to discern the general method to make these beads. In the extremely yin blood pools, plant thunder plasma, after 5 years, blood thunder beads would be produced. It was not easy to obtain blood thunder beads and they were extremely valuable. General level Mo would do almost anything to obtain a few to use as life-saving measures. Some of the content from the Yin Fire Bead chapter floated into Zhou Mo's mind. His thoughts shifted, his hand flipped, and a thread of fire appeared in the middle of his palm. The sun Shin fire immediately wrapped around the blood thunder bead. Zhou Mo's hands moved and all kinds of spells flowed into the fire. Moments later, the new blood thunder bead flew into Zhou Mo's hand. The new bead was slightly smaller than before, the silver line was even brighter, and there were dots of gold energy on the bead. Let's call this bead the Gold Star Silver Thread Bead. Zhou Mo threw the bead over to Tseng Lianer and then focused on reforging the other 15 blood thunder beads. The Yin Fire Bead chapter was a method that Zhou Mo had gotten from Pu Yao a long time ago, and was extremely familiar with the contents. As a Xiuzhe, he was skilled in forging. After his time in the 10-finger prison, he became skilled in Yao arts. His pure 10-crow celestial apparatus was enough for him to dominate in body cultivation. He was also skilled in Mo matrices. Without realizing it, Zhou Mo could be said to be learned in the methods of all 3 territories. Even though his strength could not enter the ranks in the 3 fields, Zhou Mo could definitely be called a freak in terms of how many different things he learned. What Zhou Mo did wouldn't be permitted in large sections. People had limited energy and time, so if what they learned was varied and unfocused, it would be hard to accomplish anything in the future. Due to this, after sect disciples went through the initial recruitment tests, the sect would send experienced elders to give them suggestions which area to focus on. From then on, the disciple would focus on only one field. How could Zhou Mo learn so many tricks? The 2 old spirits each wanted to pull him into their own camps. If he hadn't stumbled onto Shin power, Zhou Mo would truly have been lost in the heterogeneous mix of skills. The 3 major systems were each unto themselves, with thousands of methods, and each with their own wonders. But Zhou Mo managed to obtain the Shin power inheritance. He comprehended the Shin power. The 3 powers started to merge and he ended up with new Shin power. A new system formed like this. This caused Zhou Mo to look at the heterogeneous mix of content from a higher level and merge them into a single system. So when Zhou Mo saw the blood thunder bead, he thought of the Yin Fire Bead chapter. If this was any other person, they would have probably pondered for a long time about how to use Yao forging methods to forge Mo beads. But Zhou Mo didn't hesitate at all. He felt this was natural and there were no obstacles. From very early on, his understanding of cultivation had been diverted far from the orthodox. The Yin Fire Bead chapter naturally had its own uniqueness in order to have been famed for a time. The Yin Fire beads that Zhuo Mo had forged before had become something he kept up his sleeve. But under Zhuo Mo's present understanding and unorthodox methods, this spell that had passed from thousands of years ago was completely transformed. If the great mind that created the Yin Fire Bead Chater knew that his spell was changed into something strange like this, he would probably cry from under the ground and climb back up. For someone that only thought of practical benefits like Zhuo Mo, tradition was nothing. As long as the gold star silver thread bead was powerful enough, then it was enough. After forging the 15 gold star silver thread bead, Zhuo Mo looked towards the talismans and Mo weapons covering the ground. Ague and Sing Lianer had both picked a few things, but what should he pick? The broken arrow of the archer tribe? That was a good item. The archer tribe had been a powerful tribe that was able to threaten the dominant Sun tribe. This broken arrow wasn't ordinary. The golden leaf also had methods of using Shin power to make items, but after pondering it for a moment, Zhuo Mo gave up. The reason was simple: he did not have enough Shin power. With his pitifully small amount of Shin power, it was delusion to think he could melt and reforge a treasure like the broken arrow. Another item with the same problem was the 3,000 threads of worry. While Zhuo Mo had pulled it into his body and they could be said to have listened to his orders, but Zhuo Mo could not do a thing at the moment. Ever since the anti-dragon claw became a bracelet, the 3,000 threads of worry seemed to have entered a deep sleep. No matter how Zhuo Mo called to it, there was no response. Little Mo Go cried inside. After fighting for thousands of years, did you fall in love? The jade hookwood was a 6th grade item and it required just a bit of nurturing before it could turn into the celestial green jade hookwood. If this was a normal time, 6th grade was definitely a good item, but it would not be enough to face Fanshu. The yin-yang null polarity bead's drawback was that the user would die after using it. It was something to use to die along with the enemy. After looking around, Zhuo Mo's gaze finally ended on the black-hearted treasure coins. The Blackheart treasure coins, one of the 108 Earth Mo weapons. They could become their own domain where yin and yang were reversed, and the 5 elements were mixed. For any other person, it was a top Mo weapon. But for Zhuo Mo, who had the anti-dragon claw and the sun crystal seed, he was not satisfied with the power of the Blackheart treasure coins. But what if he reforge it? When this thought appeared, it could not be erased. In this moment, Zhuo Mo made a decision: do it. At most, this subpar weapon would be ruined. The rich little Mo Gu folded his legs and started to fiddle. Xian Kong Temple. The sect leader's harmonious face was dark. The entire hall had a suffocating atmosphere. The elders looked at each other and knew that something bad had probably happened. Everyone should already know about the fight with Xiao Mo Gu, the sect leader slowly drawled. The elders were silent and nodded. Some with nimbler minds felt their hearts jump. Had Jiangzhe lost? This upcoming battle is not insignificant. We have asked Elder Ji Zheng and Elder Dai Tao to go into the Mo territories to bring back Xiao Mo Ge's head. When these words were spoken, the elders were shocked. They hadn't thought that the sect would be so heavy in their action. 2 Fanshu elders, this battle was as good as finished. After the shock, all of them showed joy. The sect leader's expression returned to normal. Seeing the joy on the people's faces, he said coolly, Elder Ji Zheng was injured fighting with Xiao Mo Gu. The words were like lightning on a clear day. The entire place was silent and everyone was stunned. Elder Ji Zheng was wounded. Does everyone still remember the events of 26 years ago? Suddenly, the sect leader seemed to speak of something completely unrelated. 26 years ago. Suddenly, multiple elders changed expression. The one that wounded Elder Ji Zheng was the little girl from back then, the sect leader said indifferently. This stirred memories for many people, and even more changed expression. Has she achieved? An elder couldn't help but ask with slight terror on his face. She wounded Elder Ji Zheng, the sect leader said coolly. The elders became silent again and the terror on their faces increased. Elder, no matter if it is this fight, or against the little girl, we cannot lose. The sect leader's half-lidded eyes brightened and that harmonious and kind face became twisted. What slipped from our hands in the past, this time, we have to take it back. Everyone thought of the past events. Their terrified faces suddenly became excited. No matter what we have to do, we cannot lose this time. We cannot give anyone else a chance. The sect leader stood up with heat in his eyes. Victory or defeat, it will all be decided in this one move. The elders had excited expressions, their gazes burning and greedy. They stood and responded in unison, by the sect leader's orders. All of Xian Kong Temple was filled with killing intent. Chapter 671, Creation of the Talisman. Bihan's eyes were dry and burned like fire. They had sprinted for 10 days at top speed. Not drinking and eating during this time, and not resting for more than 4 hours a day, his body was pushed to its limits but his mind was unbelievably excited. Zuo Mo's actions had been very successful. The Mo had continued to join them in the hopes of participating in this battle against the Shouja. But those that were most useful to Gongsun Cha and Bihan were those Mo that were familiar with Cold Mountain Jie. They had lived in the area for a long time and were familiar with the terrain like the back of their hands. Especially the guide with him right now, someone who had told them of this secret and hidden path. This path traversed caverns hidden deep within the earth, 10 li below the surface. There were countless caverns that spanned tens of thousands of li and were interconnected like spiderwebs. They were filled with dark and cold energy, earth fire, beasts, and were extremely dangerous. If someone unfamiliar with the tunnels ventured into them, then they would most likely become lost and die in there. But their risk was worth it. Hidden deep within the caverns was a chaos rift unknown to the majority of people, one that led to an underground cavern in Cold Mountain Jie. Bihan and Gongsun Cha both understood the value of this hidden path. They had deep admiration for what Zuo Mo had done. What had originally seemed to just be propaganda and was carried out without any technique had increased the chance of their victory. Cold Mountain Jie was the Mo Jie that Jiangzhe had first conquered and right now functioned as the central forward base for Xian Kong Temple's invasion. There were large amounts of supplies stored there, but most importantly was the chaos rift that led to Xian Kong Temple. Gongye Xiaorong's fortunes had immediately changed when Mushi closed the chaos rift that led to Xian Kong Temple, leaving Gongye Xiaorong a homeless dog. The chaos rift was of the utmost importance, especially when one was attacking deep into the Mo territories. If the chaos rift was lost, it meant losing their path home. Compared to Gongye Xiaorong's prideful actions, Jiang Zhou was more cautious. How could he ignore such an important place? He had set up layers of seal formations at the Jie rivers of Cold Mountain Jie and made Cold Mountain Jie impenetrable. Before this revelation, Gongsun Cha and Bihan had never considered of attacking Cold Mountain Jie. With the small amount of forces they had, the best choice was to search for openings as they moved. Trying to attack such a well-fortified position was the same as seeking death. Gongye Xiaorong had had so many people, but facing Ma Fan who only defended and did not strike out from his base, Gongye Xiaorong couldn't do a thing and left in defeat. Any battalion wouldn't have any good ways to deal with a fort that was sealed off and had complete defensive seal formations. Presented with such a good chance, if they could not grab it, then Gongsun Cha was not Gongsun Cha, and Bihan was not Bihan. Originally, the two had planned for Bihan to attract Jiang Zhe's attention while Gongsun Cha sneaked to Cold Mountain Jie, but after discussion, they decided that this fatal blow would be delivered by Bihan. One reason was because of the hate between Bihan and Xian Kong Temple, another was that Bihan knew more about the battle generals of Xian Kong Temple than Gongsun Cha. Bihan knew how strong Jiang Zhe was. He warned Gongsun Cha that they could not change how fast they were traveling. Jiang Zhe was extremely perceptive. If Gongsun Cha delayed the movement of the troops, Jiang Zhe would definitely detect it. Gongsun Cha kept a steady pace as Bihan suggested. On Bihan's side, they moved at full speed. Even Bihan felt exhausted down to his bones after advancing at a forced march for so long. But when he thought of the hardship he had endured under Xian Kong Temple over the years, and the state of the wooden and unresponsive Sin Battalion members, his exhausted body was revitalized and the thought supported him to keep advancing. "It's this cavern," the guide said joyfully. He was extremely excited. He felt his entire body was tremble at the thought of being able to participate in this battle and deal the decisive blow. "Go!" Bihan spat out with a heated expression. The guide looked with respect at Bihan. In order to not attract any attention, they did not use emo steeds. After marching for a few days, his endurance had all been used up. Sin Battalion had carried him for the rest of the trip. This battalion was like emo puppets. They did not know exhaustion, too scary. But when he thought of the battle that was coming, he couldn't help but feel his spirits rise. He led Bihan's Sin Battalion through winding twists and turns as they quickly disappeared into the rift in the valley. Slicing through the air. Any MO that saw Xiao Mo Guess Battalion would think these 4 words. The organized battle formation and the almost tangible killing energy left deep impressions on people. Especially when this battalion was moving at full speed, the hums and shrills when they moved caused people's scalps to prickle. When this terrifying battalion started to accelerate, the flood of sound immediately informed people that this battle that was watched by the world would start at any moment. No faction along the way delayed them. They were silently watching and waiting for this battle to begin. Jiang Zhe looked at the information the scout had sent and sighed lightly. They have come so fast. In Jiang Zhe's view, this was because Bihan had detected their intentions to delay them. Advancing at full speed was to not allow Jiang Zhe enough time to prepare. But Jiang Zhe was not nervous. He had already finished his preparations. These additional preparations were just to increase their chance of victory against Bihan. But in a battle against someone like Bihan, there were too many uncontrollable factors. These preparations might not be used. He was only repairing the opening in their defenses. They had taken over many of the Mo Jia and Bihan had many targets to choose from. He knew that his fellow disciples that were guarding the other Jia were not Bihan's match. Of the entire defense line, only he could stop Bihan. That was also his strategy. He would face Bihan and leave Gongsun Cha to the others of his sect. If he could stop Bihan, the others could work together to take down Gongsun Cha and then turn around to surround Sin Battalion. Jiang Zhe knew of Bihan's temper. Bihan definitely would not give up a chance to face him. Suddenly, a golden paper crane flew into his hand. Jiang Zhe's heart jumped. The golden paper crane represented the most urgent order of the sect. Had something happened in the sect? He opened the paper crane and read the lines inside. His brow furrowed. When he saw the name of Jizh and Shishizu, 1, Jiang Zhe's surprise could not be suppressed and it was as though a tsunami formed inside of him. 2 Fanshu experts, and now another batch of experts were about to enter Cold Mountain Jie. What had happened? But Jiang Zhe also had a bad feeling. For any sect, it was dangerous for all of their elite forces to leave the sect and not leave anyone for defense. While he did not believe that anyone would dare to act against the sect, but he innately resisted a risky action like this that did not leave any room to spare. But he was not the sect leader. He smiled helplessly and tried to explain to himself, if it isn't an extremely important matter, the sect leader would not be so impulsive. But Zhuo Mo's expression was solemn. The Black Heart treasure coins in his hand were completely transformed. The Black Heart treasure coins had square openings that seemed to be filled with blood. It would be more accurate to call them the Red Heart treasure coins now. The 7 Red Heart treasure coins were scattered on a turtle shell. Originally, Zhuo had not thought of this turtle shell that had been thrown into a corner of his ring. When he had been reforging the Black Heart treasure coins, he had felt that the talisman's abilities were wondrous but they lacked the power to deal a fatal blow. Zhuo looked down on the Black Heart treasure coin for this weakness. Since he was going to reforge it, he naturally had to take the chance so he searched for suitable materials in the ring. When his gaze landed on this turtle shell, his eyes lit up. The turtle shell gave off extremely weak Shin power vibrations. This was something Zhuo had previously had a hard time detecting, but now Zhuo immediately detected the extraordinary nature of the turtle shell. The threat of Shin power was extremely weak, but it was pure. After thinking for a while, he remembered that he had gotten this turtle shell when he had been looting the Sun Shin temple. He hurriedly went to the gold leaf to search for the origins of this turtle shell and was given a fright. This was the turtle shell that the Sun Crystal tribe used for divination during ceremonies. It had been the turtle shell of the Sea Turtle tribe's totem. After the Sun tribe had destroyed the Sea Turtle tribe and their totem, this turtle shell had been given to the Shin temple. The only damage on it were scorch marks caused by the Shin fire of the sacrificial altar. Even though tens of thousands of years had passed, this turtle shell was otherwise undamaged. The Sea Turtle tribe cultivated water-type Shin power, and after being forged in Shin fire for countless years, the Sun Shin power had permeated every bit of it. Water and fire had merged together in an unique fashion. If he could have seen this strange method of fire and water together, Zhuo's Li Water Sword scripture would have advanced several grades. Each treasure coin was now blue with red on the inside, each textured with the pattern of the turtle shell. They dotted the turtle shell. The scorch marks on the turtle shell had disappeared and the shell itself had become as white as jade without any flaw. Inside the turtle shell was a shallow puddle of crystal clear water that was like a mirror. The tears of the mist people had been used here. What was most unique was that there was a ring of sparks around each turtle coin. They were a miniaturized version of the reversed stellar revolution. Each of the turtle coins had a ring of sparks that revolved prettily on the surface of the turtle shell. This was the first top-tier talisman that Zhuo had gained. It was not suitable to categorize this talisman using the normal grade ranking system. With the Earth Mo weapon as the starting point, the holy relict of an ancient tribe as the foundation, with Yao arts used as adornment, with the mist people's tears as the lake, and forged using the forging methods of the Shouja. A talisman like this surpassed everything that Zhuo knew. The moment that the talisman took form, Zhuo felt joyed. At this time, black cloud gathered overhead and lightning flashed. Lightning struck down and the mountain above Zhuo's head turned to powder. Another bolt of lightning came at Zhuo. A turtle coin suddenly flew from the water on top of Zhuo's head. A suction force suddenly came from the red square hole. The lightning immediately entered the square hole. The turtle coin did not move at all, as though the lightning had just been an illusion. The black clouds overhead seemed to be infuriated. Lightning roared and came down towards the turtle coin above Zhuo's head. As the thunder roared, the tortoiseshell patterns on the turtle shell slowly turned silver. They were absorbing the lightning. 1. Ancestral Shirshu, most likely of several generations. Chapter 672, Return and Kill. Jijing opened his eyes. His pale face had finally recovered some color. The power of the Lingdan circulated in his body. He had not wasted these few days of rest. However, he knew that the injury would not heal in this little time. The destructive ability of the Shin technique surpassed his imagination. Even when he thought of it now, he felt a thread of fear. If it wasn't for the Buddha relic, it was very likely he would have died. Shin power, as expected of Shin power. The events of the past suddenly floated into his mind. He couldn't help but sigh lightly. But his Diana heart was strong and knew of the importance of this information to the sect, so the stray thoughts disappeared. He turned and asked Hui Bao, "Can we catch them?" Hui Bao said cautiously, "This one will try." The fight from 10 days ago had frightened him half to death. He had not thought the Fanshu level Shishizu would be wounded. The power of the enemy was this unimaginable. He did not understand why such a powerful expert would still spend time and effort on learning unorthodox skills like concealment and fleeing. Jijing knew that Hui Bao did not have a full grasp of the situation and did not lecture him. He nodded. "Try your best." After the elders of the sect came, even if Xiao Mo Gu could run to the ends of the world, they would have ways of finding him. At this time, the black clouds that were gathering in the distance disturbed them. Someone is forging talismans? Dai Tao looked at the inky black clouds in the distance and the dancing lightning with shock. Such a powerful presence meant that this talisman would be extraordinary. Ji Zheng raised his head to look. It's them. Having fought against Zuemo, Ji Zheng immediately detected that familiar presence. The direction where the black clouds were gathering was the same as where Xiao Gu and the others had fled. This guy is so daring. Dai Tao showed anger. He hadn't thought that Xiao Gu hadn't just stayed rather than fled, and even had the gall to forge talismans near them. So daring. So daring. Dai Tao was so angry he was trembling. It was the first time he had seen someone so arrogant. He didn't even try to flee when being chased by Tu Fanxiu and was publicly forging talismans nearby. Talismans? Under the pressure of absolute power, even the top talismans were of no use, much less talismans that were forged in a hurry. In his eyes, this was Xiao Gu underestimating them. Dai Tao turned to look at Ji Zheng. Ji Zheng could see the Dai Tao's fury. His face was still as unaffected as granite. Let's go see. Dai Tao flew off first without another word. Ji Zheng did not speak and followed closely behind. The two were wary of the trio but not afraid. In their view, Xiao Gu and his group were able to wound Ji Zheng was just because the two of them had been careless. If they were serious, Xiao Gu's group wouldn't have had any chance at all. Dai Tao held a low opinion of Ji Zheng, requesting more support from the sect. He did not think that Xiao Gu could escape from their hands. Ji Zheng was wounded, but Dai Tao, who thought that he had seen what Xiao Gu's group could do, he did not fear them. If it wasn't that this was a great matter. Dai Tao actually did not want to attract too much attention. He was in Fanxiu, but he wasn't from Xian Kong Temple. The people in the sect could have their own thoughts about him. But, Xiao Gu's dismissive attitude completely infuriated him. If little Mo Gu knew Dai Tao's thoughts, he would feel he was unjustly blamed. When the last bolt of lightning entered the turtle coin, the clouds in the sky dissipated. The blue sky was clear and was left without any of the killing energy from just moments ago. The turtle coin flew back into the pond. The 7 turtle coins floated and moved on the surface of the water, creating sparks. Having seen the shocking forging process, Tseng Lianer looked curiously at the turtle coin talisman in Zuomo's hand and asked, "What talisman is this?" Zuomo remembered that he hadn't given it a name. After some thought, he decided. Oh, it's called the Little Mo Treasure Cup. He did not have to expend any effort to give such a simple and descriptive name. It could also satisfy his little sense of pride. Tseng Lianer's surprise and anticipation was completely destroyed by this name. Neither Zuomo or Tseng Lianer would think of how much amazement, Xiao Mo Treasure Cup, would cause the world. Few people would ever learn of this name, its true name of Little Mo Treasure Cup. The cheerful Zuomo did not know that the name he had just given the talisman would be changed by people in the future. At this time, he was filled with joy and confidence. While he had not tested the power of the Little Mo Treasure Cup, he knew it would be extraordinary. However, the feeling of being connected to Little Mo Treasure Cup caused him to think of Lil Pagoda and lowered his mood. But he quickly sorted out his emotions. Let's go back and kill them. Zuomo raised his head and said something frightening. Agui naturally would not object, but unexpectedly, Tseng Lianer did not object. The cunning and clever little Mo Gu naturally would not seek his own death. He had his own plans. While he had not seen the result of the battle that day, seeing that the enemy had not made a move these past few days, Zuomo immediately realized that Ji Zheng was wounded, and it was not a light injury. Otherwise, they would not have remained silent in these last 10 days. Ji Zheng's injury caused Zuomo's thoughts to become active. The 3 of them had recovered, and a powerful talisman had been forged. It could be called their strongest moment. The enemy was at their weakest, and this was a good chance. While the result of the battle 10 days ago was caused by the other underestimating them, it also showed that the three of them had a chance. Zuomo knew as time went on and Ji Zheng's wounds healed their situation would turn for the worse. If they retaliated now, while it was risky, there was also an opportunity. Ague would listen to Zuomo and Seng Lianer did not object, so the three turned back towards Ji Zheng to kill. But after they had flown out only a short distance, they saw Dai Tao's group. Dai Tao's eyes were keen. When he saw the trio, he first froze and then became furious. If he had felt that Xiaomo Gu had dismissed them by forging talismans rather than fleeing, then Dai Tao was so angry he could only smile as he saw Xiaomo Gu had returned. When had Fanshu Xiuzhe been underestimated so? Without another word, he sped up and shot towards the trio. He was going to make the three understand the anger of a Fanshu could burn anything. The five-element manifestation will came out. Xian Kong Temple is still like this. They would make a fuss over any little matter. Shui Dong's tone was slightly mocking. In this time, Xian Kong Temple had attracted the gaze of the entire Xiuzhe world. The battle between Xiaomo Gu and Jiang Zhe was also watched in the Xiuzhe world. However, what Shui Dong was talking about was not that. Kunlun's spies were high in the ranks and Xian Kong Temple did not intend to conceal the matter, so Kunlun had received the information quickly. I know a bit about this. Lin Qian felt slightly heavy. He had previously reviewed the cases of ancient tribe descendants being exterminated in the last few hundred years, and knew more than Shui Dong. Shui Dong turned in curiosity. Lin Qian was about to speak when a disciple sudden came in. Eldest Shixiang, the sect leader is looking for you. Shui Dong immediately understood that the matter was not as simple as he thought. Lin Qian nodded at Shui Dong before leaving with this disciple. When he stepped into the large hall, Lin Qian stopped breathing. Inside the large hall, almost all the sect elders were present. Even the elders that had not shown themselves for many years were in attendance. It was the first time Lin Qian had seen a scene like this in his lifetime. The gazes of the elders landed on Lin Qian's person as he entered. Many elders gave small smiles of acknowledgement. Lin Qian was humble, talented, and well-liked by the elders. Everyone understood the next sect leader would definitely be Lin Qian. These elders had great status, but their descendants and disciples would need to rely on Lin Qian's care. No one was willing to be at odds with Lin Qian. The sect leader seemed to know that Lin Qian had arrived, though his eyes were closed. His strong eyebrows twitched and he opened his eyes. He said slowly, "Everyone knows the situation. I have called everyone here to discuss Kunlun's sect's stance on this issue." The sect leader's authority in Kunlun was unquestionable. In front of the sect leader, those rebellious elders didn't dare to breathe loudly. Moments later, an elder started the discussion. In the past, our reputation was left in disgrace and we didn't obtain a thing. Our development of Shen power has been pretty good, and if we spend some more time, we will definitely learn some mysteries of Shen power. An elder objected at this time. Shen power has developed, but it is not something we can complete in a day. Right now, we are searching blindly and only have limited examples. If we can obtain. The two were like sparks that were thrown into a barrel of dynamite. The hall descended into noise. The sect leader kept his eyes down and half-lidded. He allowed everyone to argue as though he had fallen asleep. Gradually, the camps between the crowd became clear. The majority of elders supported interfering in Xian Kong Temple's affair. Seeing the clear attitudes, they closed their mouths. The hall became silent again. Only after the group finished did the sect leader seem to wake up and open his eyes. He said coolly, "Since you have reached a consensus, then do this. However, we cannot copy Xian Kong Temple. We will only send one Fanshu elder, and 5 Yuanying elders. It would be good to bring along more disciples. If young people do not get experience, they cannot become accomplished." By the sect leader's order. The elders bowed. The way the sect leader handled the discussion and made a decision today had broadened Lin Qian's vision. The sect leader had only said 2 sentences today, but no one was able to object. Lin Qian seemed to understand. After the meeting ended, the sect leader did not find Lin Qian for a private discussion. It looked like a minor meeting, but Lin Qian had learned a lot. A sect leader needed to unite the benefits of the majority and not use his status to force others. Having just walked out, Lin Qian saw a person hurry over. Lin Qian stopped walking. The incomer was the Vice Hall Master Zhong Bao of Listening Wind Hall. He definitely had news. Listening Wind Hall was the intelligence division of Kunlun. It held a reputation and status in the Shoujo world as one of the best intelligence groups. The number of tentacles it had in all areas of the 3 territories far surpassed people's imaginations. What is it? Lin Qian asked. Zhong Bao respectfully reported, it is about Wei Sheng. Wei Sheng. Lin Qian's eyes flickered. A figure that was as determined and steely as a sword appeared in his mind. His eyes brightened. Chapter 673, Do Not Touch. Tsing Lianer was the first to act against the quick 5-element manifestation wheel. With one toss, she threw out 3 gold star silver thread beads. The thumb-sized golden star silver thread beads transformed into balls of blood when they left her hand. The sticky blood twisted as it flew through the air, and a strong tang of blood immediately filled the area. Inside each ball of blood, there was blood-colored lightning that floated and flickered and little golden flame lotuses. Dai Tai snorted coldly and his eyes became more murderous. In his eyes, he wouldn't need any power to deal with a few blood thunder beads. Diana spells were the natural bane of blood-type MO skills. While Dai Tao was not a traditionally trained Xian Kong temple disciple, but he had been with the temple very long and almost all the temple records in the were available to him. How could he not know Diana spells? He chanted solemnly as his hands moved to activate a Diana spell. The shadowy figure of a Buddha flew out of the 5-element manifestation wheel and took form. She was dressed in white robes, a red mole between her brows, and held a willow branch. As she descended, her feet landed on a white lotus. She smiled and lifted the willow branch in her hand. Several drops of dew from the willow branch flew into a ball of blood. The blood ball roiled violently like a furious wild beast and continued flying forward. Dai Tao was slightly shocked. It had not been defeated. The white Buddha raised the willow branch in her hand again. Several more drops of dew flowed along the tender branch and shot off towards the balls of blood. Boom boom boom. The balls of blood hadn't dissolved like Dai Tao had expected, instead the 3 balls of blood in the air exploded. Caught off guard, Dai Tao was immediately swallowed by the bloody mist. Boom boom boom. The lightning balls that floated inside the wave of blood flew towards Dai Tao like sharks that had smelled blood. The lightning balls exploded in the air and formed an electrical net that went to envelope him. Those nondescript little golden flames were masked by the blinding light of the lightning. The fast beating of thunder in the blood mist sounded like fireworks. Dai Tao was left extremely disheveled. But lightning of this degree was unable to harm him. But the sheer amount of plasma lightning had surprised him. He hurriedly moved the 5-element manifestation wheel and released a light that covered him. While the lightning caused the light shield to shake, it was unable to cause him actual harm. Such an embarrassment. Dai Tao's face was flushed red. A Fanchu was forced to such a degree by a general level, such a humiliation. And the other hadn't even used Shin power. The angry Dai Tao directed the white-robed Buddha to deflect the lightning. Counterattack. He had to retaliate. He decided that he would not hold back and immediately use a killing move, not giving them any chance at all. Yet Dai Tao did not notice those hidden little lotus flowers of flame until the flowers of fire had actually burned through the light shield cast by the 5-element manifestation wheel. Dai Tao's expression froze on his face. How was it possible? The 5-element manifestation wheel was an 8th-grade talisman. What kind of fire was this? Gritting his teeth, the 5-element manifestation wheel above Dai Tao's head moved again. A dignifiedly figure of a Buddha appeared, this time they were sitting on a red lotus. The red lotus Buddha pointed, and all of the gold flames flew towards the red lotus under him like birds returning to the nest. In a blink, the red lotus was covered in the gold flames. Such a malicious flame. Dai Tao immediately discovered that these gold flames were difficult to absorb. His red lotus Buddha had the ability to absorb all kinds of fire, but this time, it was unable to absorb the gold flames. Was this Shin fire? When the thought appeared in his mind, his pupils contracted. These silent gold flames should be Shin fire. Dai Tao felt as though he was going to go crazy soon. The two Buddhas summoned by the five-element manifestation will were unable to defeat the other's blood thunder beads. The enemy was more difficult to handle than he had imagined. Dai Tao calmed down after encountering such a hindrance. It seemed that Ji Zheng Shixiang's injury had not been an accident. These three were stronger than he had expected. If he was careless, he might actually lose. He held his hand up into the air. The five-element manifestation will slowly spun, and under the five-colored light, the flames and lightning lights suddenly stilled. The five-colored light flowed, the flames and lightning immediately divided, 1 into 2, 2 into 4. They became smaller and smaller until they shattered and disappeared. Zhuo had not hoped that he could defeat Dai Tao with 3 gold star silver thread beads. While Dai Tao was still feeling troubled by the Sun Shin fire, the second wave of attack by the trio arrived. The second to attack was Agui. Purple energy flashed through her eyes and she slammed her hand towards Dai Tao. At this time, the five-colored light of the five-element manifestation will was covering Dai Tao. The five-colored lights moved constantly. Agui's blow, which never missed, was deflected and brushed against the five-colored pillar of light. It shot off and entered the ground below Dai Tao, silently creating a 10-zhang hole. Dai Tao's expression was calm, but he was astounded inside. While Agui's blow had been deflected, his five-element manifestation realm still shook. At this time, he did not dare to be careless. His five-element manifestation will was being pushed to its limits. Within the five-colored pillar of light, 5 Buddhas of different colors gradually appeared and slowly moved with the pillar of light. The trio felt a strong suction force come from the five-element manifestation wheel. A sticky power was furiously pulling them towards the five-colored light. The air seemed to become solidified and the three seemed to be trapped in a bog. When a Fanshu Xiuzha attacked at full power, the trio immediately felt the pressure increase, pressure that came from all directions and was unable to be blocked. That time they had fought Ji Zheng. Ji Zheng had been the reactive party the entire time and was suppressed by the three. Ji Zheng's attention had been focused on how to resolve the three's attacks. But Dai Tao had rapidly calmed down from his rage and attacked at full power. The three immediately felt the difference. Terrifying pressure came from all directions and caused them to feel it was inescapable. Absolute power. Zhuo quickly reacted and knew that this could not continue. The power in the air around them was increasing. If they did not act, in the end, just the twisting power in the air would tear them to pieces. Taking a deep breath, Zhuo brought out the little Mo treasure cup. His expression was solemn, and when he was about to attempt to activate it, the Shin power inside his body suddenly flooded uncontrollably into the little Mo treasure cup. Zhuo's mind went blank from surprise. Ding! A turtle coin on the shell suddenly became bright. It jumped off the water's surface, turned into a silver light, and flew towards Dai Tao's figure inside the five-colored pillar of light. Good attack! Dai Tao's hairs suddenly stood on end. Without even thinking, he shouted and channeled the Ling power in his body to its limits. The five-element manifestation wheel above his head suddenly accelerated in its rotation. The space within 10 li of this place started to twist. The Buddhas within the pillar were all chanting, each took up different positions and expressions, glaring angrily, smiling, dignified, or solemn. Numerous bright sutra characters floated on the surface of the pillar of light. The silver light was like a silver arrow. The silver arrow did not seem to be affected by the twisting of space. In the moment it touched the surface of the pillar, all of the sutra characters turned bright. The 5 Buddhas acted at the same time and singing rang out over the land. Yet this silver light seemed to have shot into glass. Cling. The clear sound was unusually dissonant when heard with the Buddhist song. The song suddenly stopped. The silver light that entered the pillar seemed to have entered sticky glue and drastically slowed down. Dai Tao finally saw that this silver light was a treasure coin that was round on the outside, and square on the inside, covered in silver etchings. Sparks would come out of the treasure coin and then extinguish within the pillar of light. Strange. Dai Tao's expression changed. The sparks were being destroyed, but the pillar of light from the 5-element manifestation will was also dimming. At this time, the clear water inside the cup that Zhuo Mo held shook slightly and it rippled. As the ripple traveled through the air, it caused the 5-colored pillar of light rippled as though it was water. The Buddhas within the pillar of light wavered and showed signs of instability. Dai Tao's heart jumped. In an instant, the ripples had caused their positions to be reversed. What kind of talisman was this? A hint of terror flashed through Dai Tao's eyes. Ji Zheng, who had been at the back, changed expression. Not good. If terror rose in Dai Tao's mind, it would disrupt his dhyana heart, and would create a weakness in the pillar of light. Ji Zheng had not thought that the power of these 3 would have increased so much in just 10 days. He finally realized that they had still underestimated the 3. Ji Zheng disregarded the wounds on his body. A gold color rose on his face. His fingers flickered and pointed towards the turtle coin in the pillar of light. Boom! This minute action caused a great thunderous sound. Dhyana sound thunder finger. Yet the moment a weakness appeared in Dai Tao's mind, the turtle coin in the pillar of light disappeared. Dai Tao's right arm suddenly exploded. The bright lightning immediately covered Dai Tao. Almost at the same time that the terrifying power brushed against Dai Tao's body, it had collided with a nearby mountain peak. The little mountain exploded. Zhuo Mo woke up from his stupor. The Shin power inside his body had all been wrung out. He suddenly thought of an object and shoved a sun seed into his mouth. Immediately, the pure and burning Shin power turned into a flow into his body. Zhuo Mo was overjoyed. The sun fruit seed was as powerful as expected. He was about to activate the little Mo treasure cup when his expression changed drastically and he shouted, "Run!" The 3 were in sync, and before he finished shouting, Agui and Seng Lianer had retreated dozens of zhang. "I will kill you! I will kill you!" Dai Tao shouted madly. What came from behind them was a tsunami of terrifying Ling power vibrations. Rocks and rivers floated up into the air, leaving gravity and ground behind. Zhuo Mo sprinted as he glanced back. Dai Tai's entire body was burnt black and gave off black smoke. His hair was loose and his right shoulder was a mangled mess of blood and flesh. But at this time, Dai Tai's eyes were full of murderousness. He raised his left hand. Astounding Ling power continued to gather towards his left hand. The terrifying Ling power vibrations were like a wall of wind. The terrifying power that induced hopelessness continued to gather. Zhuo Mo's scalp felt numb. He hated that he didn't have 2 more legs. All the power he had, including his Shin power, was used to flee for his life. Agui and Seng Lianer also recognized the danger and furiously flew forward. Zhuo Mo flew so hard that his tendons bulged and his face was twisted. The behind of a fanshu should not be touched. Should not be touched. Chapter 674, Wei Xing's Sword Oath, Shidi. Ji Zheng's shout was like spring thunder. He used a secret Xian Kong temple technique, Nirvana shout. Ji Zheng had seen something was not right. Dai Tao was not originally from Xian Kong temple and his foundation was much weaker compared to Ji Zheng. His dhyana heart was not as stable, and if Ji Zheng had allowed him to lose control any further, his mind would be damaged. It would definitely cause a permanent weakness and he would have greater difficulty progressing in his cultivation in the future. The enraged Dai Tao's figure suddenly stilled. His bloodshot eyes recovered some clarity. Moments later, Dai Tao became completely calm and the blood in his eyes retreated. Many thanks, Shi Xiang. Dai Tao said gratefully. If he had fallen to his mental demon then it would cause great trouble in the future. Ji Zheng shook his head. We are of the same sect, there's no need to be polite. His gaze turned in the direction the three had disappeared into. His tone was unprecedentedly grave. These three are powerful and each of them is almost comparable to a Fanqiu. They work together well, are cunning, and also have a great treasure. They will not be easy to deal with. Dai Tao felt fear. That talisman Xiao Mo Gu had was very powerful. My 5-element manifestation will could not stop it at all. That turtle coin had passed through his body, disappeared into the distance, and returned to the treasure cup. Dai Tao was an unlucky one. With his history as a roaming xiu, his 5-element manifestation will was based in the 5 elements. If he had encountered another talisman, it would definitely not have been this unfavorable. The 7 turtle coins had been made using the Blackheart treasure coins, which already had the ability to reverse yin-yang and the 5 elements and was a bane of the 5-element manifestation wheel, a natural counter. Ji Zheng nodded. It really is a great treasure. Dai Tao grimaced. Our boat upturned in shallow water this time. We have been pushed so far by these 3 younger ones. Ji Zheng did not feel anything and said solemnly, it is just the strength of Shen power. I have gained some understanding of Shen power after fighting these few days. Dai Tao paused and then he pondered it. He said, after Shi Xiang mentioned this, I feel that Shen power is not as incomprehensible as before but I still lacks understanding about several key parts. If we can solve them, then it will naturally come. Dai Tao's tone was slightly excited. The fight these past days had allowed him to experience the power of Shen power. It was stronger than Ling power. Those that could enter Fanqiu were all extremely intelligent. The 4 great sects had studied Shen power for thousands of years, and they had accumulated far more than what normal sect disciples could imagine. After fighting with Sua Mo several times, both had begun to grasp a few things. Their low morale suddenly rose. If they could comprehend Shen power, any price was worth it. They had spent a long time at the Fanqiu level and every bit of progression was difficult. If they could comprehend Shen power, their strength would skyrocket. There was nothing more attractive than this. But we are both wounded and our power is hampered. Ji Zheng's tone was calm. Dai Tao gritted, those 3 are too cunning. However, after all the sect elders arrive, they won't be able to escape. There may not be enough time. A hint of worry flashed across Ji Zheng's eyes. Why does Shi Xiang say this? Dai Tao stilled. The effects of that past incident was significant and the other 3 sects will not ignore this incident, Ji Zheng said gravely. I'm afraid that their people have already started to move. Then. Dai Tao was astounded. If the other 3 also came in, the situation would immediately become complex. We cannot wait for the sect elders, Ji Zheng said decisively. Even if our cultivations will be affected, we cannot let these 3 escape. Dai Tao thought for a moment and then suddenly said, I have an idea. Seeing Ji Zheng turn to look at him, Dai Tao said, these 3 are troublesome, but if we are careful, they will not be able to injure us. Dai Tao's words were right. Ji Zheng did not speak and waited for his next words. What we want is just the method of Shen power cultivation. If that's the case, then why don't we spar with them? Dai Tao said what he thought. Spar. Ji Zheng stilled. Every day we challenge them to battle, do not aim to win or lose. Using fighting to comprehend Shen power and comprehend it before the other sects arrive. That way, even if our sect is not the winner in the end, we will already understand the mysteries of Shen power. Dai Tao had an excited expression. When he thought about comprehending Shen power, his heart burned hotter. Ji Zheng was silent for a moment before raising his head. Good. Dai Tao's suggestion was plausible. The 2 were both people that were extremely confident in themselves. They were confident they could comprehend Shen power. The two exchanged a look and chased in the direction that Zhuo Mo and the others had disappeared in. Almost all the people of the Mo territories were interested in the Zhui's Mo battle that was about to occur. The attention that Wei Xing received was reduced compared to before. However, Wei Xing seemed to not have heard the news. He still cultivated diligently every day, and in his spare time, he would continue to challenge Mo experts. While the Mo did not like Wei Xing and everyone wanted a Mo expert to tear him to pieces, he was not harassed in any way. Wei Xing used his sword to win the respect of Mo. In the eyes of Mo, only a honest victory would be a victory against such an honorable and respected opponent. Many businesses even came forward. They were willing to provide Wei Xing with the best rooms and the best food. Every place that Wei Xing stayed would quickly become famous. This was all about Ma Bei. If little Mo Gu was here, he would definitely take the chance to make it rich. Was it so easy to win eldest Shixiang's patronage? There should be a few auctions so that he could wring out every last Ma Bei. Of course, Wei Xing did not have such entrepreneurial abilities. In truth, if it was not for the convenience, he would have rather stayed in the empty and vast mountain valleys. The evening came. There was a challenge in 3 days. His opponent was a famed expert in this jie. Wei Xing was meditating with his legs folded up in the lotus position, the black sword by his side. There was no joy or sorrow on his face. He almost never relaxed. Almost every drip and drop of time was used on his cultivation as though he was a diligent Diana Xiu. Suddenly, Wei Xing opened his eyes in the dark. "Since you have come, why hide?" Wei Xing said coolly. As expected of brother Wei Xing, that even eldest Shixiang praises. A figure appeared in a ripple from the space in front of Wei Xing. The newcomer was a woman dressed in silk and feathers. Her eyes were bright, her teeth white, but Wei Xing's gaze landed on a little row of swords at her waist. Wei Xing's gaze focused. "Kuan Luan." The female bowed. "Kuan Lun's de Ling Feng greets brother Wei Xing. Brother Wei Xing is peerless in courage, and this female admires you for entering the Mo territories and winning." Wei Xing's expression became normal. "Why has Miss De come to see me?" There was a small smile on De Ling Feng's face. "Your sect is related to the fall of Bright Wave Jie. Brother Wei, please come with me to explain the misunderstanding." Bright Wave Jie had fallen. Wei Xing's heart shook, but after all the fighting in this recent while, his sword heart had become even stronger. There was no expression on his face. "Oh, you should speak to the sect leader regarding matters of the sect. Why did Miss De come so far to ask Wei?" When he said this, Wei Xing realized, his eyes lit up and became as sharp as a sword. He looked directly at De Ling Feng. "Are the sect leader and the Shishu no longer present?" De Ling Feng shook her head. "This female does not know of that. Brother Wei will naturally know when you return to the sect with me." Wei Xing was not as cunning as Zhuo Mo, but he was not stupid. He was not sure about Wukong's sword sect, but in a few seconds, he had completely understood why De Ling Feng was here. There was only one possibility: when Kun Luan would come to the Mo territories to invite him back. The sect had split from Kun Luan. Thinking about what De Ling Feng had just said, Bright Wave Jie had fallen, was it? Sect leader, Shibua, Shishu, they most likely. Wei Xing's body shook. A wave of sorrow and grief rose. His eyes immediately turned red. What did their sect have to do with the fall of Bright Wave Jie? These words gave off a thick scent of conspiracy. Kuan Lun's enmity was evident. Wei Xing understood that De Ling Feng had not come to invite him but capture him. Wei Xing slowly stood. His reddened eyes stared at De Ling Feng. His voice was hoarse as he said, emphasizing each word. "If my sect's elders met misfortune because of Kun Luan, then I, Wei Xing, swear by the sword to destroy Kun Luan." The great sorrow mixed with hatred hit De Ling Feng's mind like a hammer. De Ling Feng's presence was stolen, her face paled, and she reflexively took a step back. But she immediately reacted and raged, Wei Sheng, you dare. Dare to slight my Kunlun. It seems that you have been secretly colluding with the Yao. Colluding with the Yao Ma. That was Kunlun's excuse. Wei Sheng's sorrow increased. De Ling Feng's eyes were dismissive as she said proudly, my Kunlun is a righteous and good sect, is it one that a lowly fighter like you can slander? Humph. Don't think that because you can show off in the Mo territories that you can challenge my Kunlun. Today, I will let you see why my Kunlun. De Ling Feng's words suddenly stopped. Because the edge of Wei Sheng's sword was against her throat. While she was speaking, Wei Sheng's void sword essence had permeated the entire room. Every inch of space was under the control of his void sword essence. De Ling Feng's body was paralyzed and her face was ashen. There was only one thought in her mind. He actually attacked her. He dared to actually attack. He dared to attack Kunlun. The iciness and brutality of the black sword caused her hairs to stand on end and fear to move. I usually do not like to fight women. Wei Sheng's deep voice echoed in the room. De Ling Feng relaxed slightly. A hand suddenly removed the row of little swords at her waist. For people like you to use the sword, it is a humiliation to the sword. The bone-aching coldness at her neck disappeared. De Ling Feng relaxed. Before she could speak, an extremely thin sword essence burrowed into her body. This sword essence was extremely strange. Once it entered her body, it disappeared. Her face suddenly turned white. Her Ling power seemed to have suddenly disappeared. Her mind blanked. Her cultivation had been destroyed. Return and tell Lin Qian that I will come find him. In the darkness, De Ling Feng could not see Wei Sheng's face, but every one of Wei Sheng's words were clear on her mind as though they were carved by his sword. De Ling Feng stumbled into the darkness. In the room, Wei Sheng gripped the black sword until his fingers turned white. The tears could not be suppressed and continued to flow. Chapter 675, Disheveled, Zhua Mo felt it was strange. The two old thieving baldies kept coming to challenge. No, they were Funshu experts. You could not use the term challenge for fights with little fish like Zhua Mo. The two old thieving baldies became glue and would not let them rest. They would fight 3 to 5 rounds every day. It was as though Zhua Mo owed them Mo Bay. Zhua Mo did not know what these two old thieving baldies intended, but this was also to his own aims. His goal was to lure the two old thieving baldies away to create opportunities for Gongsun Cha and Bihan. Zhua Mo had been worried that these two would not fall for it and return to help Jiang Zhe. Since they wanted to fight, then he would oblige. The more he fought, the stranger Zhua Mo felt. He found free time and went into the sea of consciousness to as Pu Yao. They want to use you to comprehend Shin power. With how cunning Pu Yao was, he saw the two's intentions with a glance. Zhua Mo finally realized and then laughed darkly. Little Mo Gu didn't just know Shin power. Of the trio, only a Gue was limited to Shin power. Zhua Mo and Xing Lianer both knew Mo skills, and if this was any other time, they would not dare to use Mo skills to face the two Fanshu thieving baldies. However, at present, the enemy was wounded and their power was reduced. They could manage it. For a greedy person like Little Mo, that would wring out benefits even when there weren't any. Little Mo Gu wouldn't be Little Mo Gu if he didn't take advantage of those that came to him. Heavenly, where would he go to find two Fanshu to spar with him for free? If he pass on such a good opportunity, he would be struck by lightning. Therefore, Ji Zheng and Dai Tao quickly found that the number of times Xiao Mo Gu came to challenge them increased. The two were overjoyed. Of the trio, Xiao Mo Gu's Shin power was the strongest and the purest. Fight? The two accepted happily. But they quickly detected something was wrong. Both Xing Lianer and Xiao Mo Gu did not use Shin power no matter what happened. It would have been okay if that was just it. Those that were in Fanshu did not lack patience. The two quickly changed their strategy and started to drag out the fights. After you finish using your Mo skills, I don't believe you won't use Shin power. Consequently, a tragedy occurred. After fighting for an hour, and seeing Xiao Mo guess 10 Crow's celestial apparatus showed signs of fatigue, the two were slightly tired but they were filled with joy. Boy! You're done. Shin Power, let it out. Then little Mo Gu showed them 2 rows of his snowy white teeth. Yao Arts. From little Yao Arts to little thousand-leaf hands, to the archaic wasteland sacrificial art. He seemed to fire off fireworks that dazzled the duo. He even brought out his half-learned, South Sky Arrow art, and Gray Scar art, for a spin. The two suddenly seemed to remember that the sex dossier on Xiao Mo Gu had said this guy knew some Yao arts. However, was this really considered only knowing some? The two were unprepared. Zhuo Mo took advantage of this rare moment and he outperformed himself. He continued for several hours until he used almost all the Yao arts he knew before he stopped. Even though the two were Fanqiu, they had started to pant. Dai Tao wiped the sweat off his forehead and said breathily, "Keep him here, we cannot let him escape, otherwise, all that effort would be for nothing." Ji Zheng's breathing was heavy. He was intending to nod when Xiao Mo Gu unexpectedly charged again. The two forced themselves to be alert and was filled with anticipation. Shin Power. Was it about to start? Zhuo Mo threw out a handful of Yin fire beads and then it was followed by a dozen, sky glass wave, then sound-type spells that came like the rain. The two were completely stunned. Then Xiao Mo Gu drew a flying sword from somewhere and started to perform sword scriptures. Holy, there was also sword essence. Ji Zheng and Dai Tao were completely stupefied. Their eyes were dazed and unfocused. They could understand him knowing Yao arts. In the minds of Xiuzhe, Yao and Mo were one and the same. It was not strange for Mo to know Yao arts. But when did Mo know Xiuzhe spells? From Diana Xiu to Seal Xiu to Sword Xiu, and even more exaggerated, sword essence. A pure sword essence. Are you a spy from Kunlun? At the start, Zhuo Mo had been slightly rusty and clumsy. It had been too long since he used a flying sword. But he quickly familiarized himself and the, now, unfamiliar sword scriptures he had used floated into his mind. With Zhuo Mo's present knowledge and experience, of course it was different when he thought of these spells again. The power of Li Water Sword Scripture skyrocketed. On a high, Zhuo Mo forgot himself. At the start, he still followed the moves, and then he started to move as he pleased. Li Water Sword Scripture was just a third-grade sword scripture, and no matter what, it could not threaten Fanqiu. But as Zhuo Mo swung as he wished, it surpassed the limits of Li Water Sword Scripture. His sword essence changed and became even deeper. Yet no matter how Zhuo Mo transformed, his cultivation of sword scriptures was too shallow and he could not advance and comprehend much in a day. The pressure he could put on the duo was limited. He could not pose a real danger to Ji Zheng and Dai Tao, but they also could not threaten Zhuo Mo. The two felt this was a torture. They almost counted the seconds as they forced themselves to endure. As the power of Zhuo Mo's spells weakened, and his Ling power showed clear signs of being drained, the two almost cried from joy. Without needed to talk, the two went forward in preparing to keep Xiao Mo Gu here. If you don't use Shin power, what do you use? Little Mo Gu showed his snowy white teeth in a grin again. At the same time, he threw a sun seed into his mouth. A rush of Shin power circulated in his body. The Shin power quickly turned into the 3 powers. Before, it would take Zhuo Mo time to turn Shin power into the 3 powers, but as his understanding of Shin power had increased, this process became so brief it was almost instant. His 3 powers became full again. Little Mo Gu attacked again. Again. Li Xian'er finished looking at the paper crane that the sect had sent and great waves formed inside. Much of the content on the paper cranes was astounding. Li Xian'er could be said to have experienced much, but the contents of the paper crane still brought her great shock. At the end of the message, grandfather had used a very stern tone to tell her to take the people with her. She alone was responsible for catching Xiao Mo Gu and his group, at any cost. She had enough people. In order to protect her on this trip, grandfather had selected elite guards. While there were no Fanqiu, there were many Yuanying. She knew the importance of this matter to Tian Huan, so she immediately made a decision. You have to leave. She was extremely shocked. He did not disguise the strong reluctance on his face. Yes, because of a very important matter. My apologies. Please bid farewell to Marshal D on my behalf. I thank Marshal Dis for his great hospitality these recent days. Li Xian'er's expression was sincere. Also, thank you to Big Brother Shi. Without Big Brother Shi taking this little sister to play, this little sister would have been unable to see much of the scenery. Big Brother Shi, if you have spare time in the future, remember to come visit Tian Huan, and this little sister will also have a chance to enjoy being the guide. She was disappointed, but he quickly recovered. A warm smile came back to his face. I will definitely visit in the future. Sister Xian'er, are you returning to Tian Huan? Li Xian'er shook her head. This matter is in the Mo territories. Zai's eyes lit up. Oh, Mo territories? Then this brother has to take responsibility. The present Mo territories are chaotic and unsafe. Sister Xian'er, give this one a chance to enjoy acting as protector. Zai's tone was half serious and half joking. Li Xian'er pondered this and then said with a wide smile, then this little sister will thank Big Brother Shi. As long as it doesn't disrupt Big Brother Zai's work. I don't have any work. She smiled and said. Seeing Li Xian'er was in a hurry, she did not dither. He reported this to Marshal D. Marshal D did not stop him and picked several experts to go along, which caused she great joy. Idiot! Lin Qian showed rare anger. His expression was dark. The disciples in the surroundings did not dare to breathe. Why did you act on your own rather than wait for orders from the sect? Lin Qian's tone was murderous and his eyes as sharp as a sword. And using such a stupid method. Do you not have brains? You startled him, stupid. The disciples trembled, especially the disciple that was responsible for the matters in the Mo territories now had an ashen face. It was the first time they had seen eldest Shixiang so angry. Eldest Shixiang was usually gentlemanly and warm to others, and almost never spoke heavily. This time, he was extremely angry. De Ling Feng's face was ashen white, her eyes filled with terror and hopelessness. She had originally wanted to return the sect to cry and ask for help. But who knew that when she returned, eldest Shixiang gave her a scolding. She looked dazedly at the eldest Shixiang she revered and couldn't believe her eyes. Lin Qian was unaffected by the terror and hopelessness in De Ling Feng's eyes. He said coldly, tell me everything that happened and do not hide anything. De Ling Feng trembled and narrated everything, even the message that Wei Xing had told her to tell Lin Qian. Lin Qian asked about a few details, but she was unable to answer them. After hearing this, Lin Qian did not speak and reached out to touch De Ling Feng's wrist. Moments later, he stood and ordered, send her to Han Shirgu and ask Han Shirgu to see if there are any solutions. At this time, De Ling Feng, who was on the verge of a breakdown, started to cry. The disciples in the surroundings all were sad. 2 disciples carried De Ling Feng away. Lin Qian looked around and said loudly, I know that some of you think I was unsympathetic, but listen well. We must treat the orders of the sect with the utmost attention. I will pursue anyone that disobeys orders and acts on their own. The disciples all shook. Yes. After the disciples left, Shui Dong couldn't help but shake his head. Stupid to the utmost. Extremely stupid. This group is used to being arrogant. I hadn't thought that they would also be the same when they went out into the world. Did she think that she was in Kunlun realm? Lin Qian grimaced. It has been peaceful for too long. It is expected that the sect has become proud. That's true. Shui Dong clearly had no interest to discuss this matter deeply. He then asked, you seem to be very wary of that Wei Sheng, Not very, extremely wary. Lin Qian corrected seriously. Shui Dong was slightly surprised. I really am interested in seeing this person you respect so much. Xiao Mo Gu and Wei Sheng, two strong people have appeared. This world is more and more interesting. Lin Qian's expression was grave. Wei Sheng cannot be left alive. Shui Dong jumped in fright and asked in surprise. You don't have to exaggerate. I have a feeling that if Wei Sheng does not die, he will become a great threat to our Kunlun. Lin Qian's eyes were murderous as he said, I do not want to leave loose ends. Shui Dong scared. It is a pity that there will be one less thing that I want to see. Because of you people, this world is becoming less interesting. Being bored is better than losing your life. Lin Qian glanced at Shui Dong and said. Chapter 676, Cunning Killing Move. Gongsun Cha looked at the battalion in the distance and smiled like usual. Beside him, the gazes of the other commanders were not as friendly and their expressions were murderous. Jiang Zhe. This name had become famed in the world. If this was any other person, they would be nervous and intimidated as though it was a great enemy. But Gongsun Cha did not feel very much. The only thought that Gongsun Cha could connect to Jiang Zhe was Feng Yu's battalion, that Xian Kong battalion they had killed many battles ago. In his eyes, Xian Kong Temple had been their enemy since long ago. The difference of facing Feng Yu or Jiang Zhe was not large. In any case, they were people he had to defeat. Even though he knew that the enemy would be hard to defeat, he was not nervous. Unlike other battle generals, his journey of growth was marred in blood and death, a cruel history of battle. Little Miss, who had created a path of survival with slaughter, had a steel will under that bashful appearance. There was only excitement. That excitement of being able to find an equal to fight with rippled through his body. In this fight, what kind of surprise will his opponent give him? In the eyes that were as clear as that of a neighbor's boy, a eerie light that was called insanity flashed. The defense line that Jiang Zhe had set up was almost perfect. While some places appeared rush, the entire defensive line had been established. Even the incomplete parts looked more like traps than openings. They did not affect the overall state at all. Of course, absolute perfection did not really exist in the world. Both Jiang Zhe and Gongsun Cha knew this. Gongsun Cha knew his advantages and disadvantages. They had low manpower, but their mobility was high. Vermilion Bird Camp's equipment had always been the best of all those under Zhou Mo's command. Jiang Zhe had more people and a secure defense line, but the defense line was vast. This meant that their forces were spread thin and that Gongsun Cha had many places to target for an attack. Jiang Zhe was strong, but the battle generals under him were likely less capable. How well they could follow Jiang Zhe's plan was something that had to be tested. Also, Jiang Zhe had a great disadvantage. They were fighting on enemy territory. The unfamiliar environment and the rebellious MO were all factors that were enough to be fatal. The hidden road to Cold Mountain Jia was just example of this. Gongsun Cha did not object to using the same advantage twice. He did not hurry to attack but started to search for guides that were familiar with the local terrain. Jiang Zhe listened to the reports from his subordinates with an unchanging expression. Ever since the enemy had orchestrated the wave of attacks from the shadows, Jiang Zhe knew that this fight would be harder than he had imagined. The mastermind had caught their greatest weakness, and it was a weakness that could not be avoided. If there was 10 more years, this weakness would not exist. But there was no maybes in war. He did not agree with the enmity Xian Kong Temple held towards the MO, but he did not have any power to speak against this. While he had status in the sect, his status was not enough for him to influence the decision of the sect on a question like this. What he could do was fulfill his duties. Send the order down, every battalion has to hold their position and not act without orders. Jiang Zhe ordered without hesitation. Regardless of whether if the other was purposefully misleading them or if things were really as they appeared, Jiang Zhe would not change because he had confidence in the defense line he had set up. When Jiangzhe had been setting up the defense line, many of Xian Kong Temple had opposed it. It was hard for them to accept acting defensively. What did the great Xian Kong Temple acting defensively against a little Mo faction? While they had Bihan and Xin Battalion, Jiangzhe and the Jiangxi Battalion should still be stronger. But Jiangzhe still persisted in setting up a defense line. Fortunately, Jiangzhe had a reputation and status that was unrivaled here on the front line. No one would disobey his orders. While they did not understand, all of the battalions had complied with Jiangzhe's orders to the letter. Gongsun Cha publicly recruiting guides did not cause them any shock and panic. When planning this defense line, they had gone over the plans repeatedly. Any areas that could be problematic had been reinforced. They didn't miss any hidden places. They believed that this defense line did not have any weakness. This battle that attracted the attention of all did not begin with a fierce collision like people had expected and was slightly silent. Zhuo Mo repeatedly teased the two Fanqiu experts. He was low, cunning, shameless and not polite in the slightest. After a few times, Ji Zheng and Dai Tao realized that the other had detected their intentions. The two discussed and then still continued to follow the three. But they had given up on their thoughts of comprehending Shen power through battle and were waiting for the reinforcements from the sect. Once the sect experts arrived, they would be enough to capture these three damned people at once. The two decided that if the trio landed in their hands, they would retaliate for this humiliation by giving these three the internal injuries. The same ones that they had almost suffered these past days, especially that thrice-damned Xiao Mo Gu. They did not focus on sparring and started to slack off on responding to Zhuo Mo's teasing. Yet what He didn't know was that Zhuo Mo had already started to scheme against them. Fanqiu were terrifying, but two injured Fanqiu, in the eyes of a toad like Zhuo Mo, were swans with broken wings. After teasing them repeatedly, he had gotten a general understanding of the two. Toads that did not want to eat swans were not good toads. A toad that would pass on a swan with broken wings was not a toad but an idiot. Zhuo Mo had been scheming inside all this time. If they could kill one, the other one would definitely flee. The danger would be resolved and Zhuo Mo was moved just thinking about the riches one Fanqiu would have. Zhuo Mo's teasing was also intentional. He was like an experienced hunter repeating his actions that were not dangerous to numb the other. His plan had been successful up until now. Ji Zheng and Dai Tao were clearly not as wary as they had been. Just like usual, Zhuo Mo started his daily teasing. The one that responded to fight was Ji Zheng. However, he was not motivated as he had been a few days ago. Because he had been acting as a sparring partner in these recent days, his injuries had been suppressed but he hadn't recovered. Ji Zheng was just going along. As long as Xiao Mo Gu did not use Shen power, the other three powers were not of any danger to him. Would Xiao Mo Gu use Shen power? No. He had given up a long time ago. Once they fought, Ji Zheng's mind shook. His dull eyes suddenly lit up. Shen power. Having been tormented greatly, Ji Zheng almost cried from joy. The heavens had eyes. Overjoyed, Ji Zheng focused. He did not keep anything back. Changing from his slacking attitude, he attacked first. Shen power as expected. Xiao Mo Gu seemed to be fighting at full power and brimmed with Shen power. Ji Zheng did not feel fear and was overjoyed. He only paid attention to Xiao Mo Gu's powerful talisman. If Xiao Mo Gu would take out that powerful talisman, he would immediately move far away. He was wary of Zhuo Mo's little Mo treasure cup. Without the little Mo treasure cup, Xiao Mo Gu was just a tiger without claws and not a threat. The fighting was intense. One side had Fanqiu cultivation. He was wounded but his movements were still imbued with power. The other side had domineering Shen power. While his cultivation was lower, but with the wondrously powerful Shen power, he was evenly matched to Ji Zheng. Dai Tao was both shocked and happy. He was shocked that Xiao Mo Gu had changed what he usually did. Was there something else going on? He was joyed because if Xiao Mo Gu used Shen power, then their previous plans could possibly succeed. But before he could think, an eerie figure flashed. Dai Tao was startled and got on his guard. A Gui. Dai Tao could recognize danger. This ugly woman had a strange Shin power and was also a target of the sect. Dai Tao's mind moved. If he could capture her. Xiao Mo Gu had a powerful talisman. Dai Tao did not feel he had any hopes of capturing him. This woman had a strange Shin power, but she did not show any powerful talismans. Dai Tao felt that he had some chance of success. His thoughts moving, he unhesitatingly moved towards her. The two immediately fell into a fierce fight. A Gui's Shin power was eerie and hard to predict. Unfamiliar with this, Dai Tao almost suffered a great loss in the first clash, but using the 5-element manifestation wheel, he quickly steadied himself. As he became familiar with this strange Shin power, the power of the 5-element manifestation wheel started to show. He started to gain the advantage. At the beginning, Dai Tao kept a part of his attention focused on Xing Lianer, but as the battle progressed, he had to focus all his attention on facing a Gui. Otherwise, if he was the least bit careless, danger could appear. While a Gui's Shin power was strange, he could still gain understanding from it. Ji Zheng had completely forgotten himself in the fight. After anticipating for so many days, he finally saw value in battle. The excitement and joy he felt could be imagined. His desire towards Shin power caused him to focus. He didn't even detect that a Gui and Dai Tao were fighting. His attention was focused on each of Zhuo Mo's blows. Every collision with Shin power would increase his understanding. How long has it been since he had a feeling of a new comprehension since he had stepped into Fanqiu? He didn't remember. But this beautiful feeling was so intoxicating that he did not want to stop, and he forgot himself in the ecstasy. He wanted this battle to never end. Yet at this time, a feeling of extreme danger suddenly rose. In this moment, all the hairs on his body stood at end. A streak of silver light flew to his nose. He wasn't able to react at all. He could clearly feel the intimidating presence of that silver light. It was like a pin had pierced his nose and created pain. The silver light filled his vision. An extremely thin wound appeared on Ji Zheng's forehead. And then exploding lightning covered his entire head. Nearby, Xing Lianer had the little Mo treasure cup. Her face was ashen, her body wavering, her Shin power used up. Chapter 677, Seeds of Conspiracy. Shui Yu was nervous. He had hunted beasts for a living since his youth and his mind had been trained, but at this moment, his heart could not help but beat furiously. He was many times as stronger than before, but this did not give him any assurances because what he faced was authority, intangible but powerful. Who are you? The guard looked warily at him. The fingers of the other guard were spread. If Shui Yu showed any enmity, he would be killed immediately on the spot. Shui Yu's experience was completely displayed. His furiously beating heart slowed. His expression appeared calm and reassured. He reached out a hand. I come from Silver Catalpa Cavern, this is the token, please report my arrival. The guard examined Shui Yu with a suspicious glance. The guard did not feel any untruth from Shui Yu's calm and delicate appearance. He took the token and inspected it. When he felt there was no danger, he nodded at Shui Yu. Wait here. Finishing, he turned and entered the hall. Shui Yu was extremely nervous. He knew that the so-called token was just faked and had been made from a piece of silver thread wood. While Darren's plan was intricate and detailed, there were too many places that were fantastical. Shui Yu did not doubt Darren. The blood summons could explain everything. He himself was one of the fantastical parts, specifically it was the vast power in his body and the sea of knowledge in his mind. The knowledge was vast and varied, including many ancient secrets. However, what it contained the most of were techniques used to interact with people. This was the wealth that the ancestors had left. The blood summon represented an enormous plan. This plan was so great that even he, having grown in power and knowledge, needed to spend a large amount of time to understand it. When he read the plan from beginning to end, he was completely won over by this daring and unorthodox plan. Large numbers of techniques used for scheming had been shoved into his mind. But compared to the plan laid out in front of him, those great tales of conspiracies were not worth a mention. A grand master schemer. This was definitely a plan made by a great schemer. This enormity of the plan exposed the great ambitions of the Darren that he served. He suddenly recalled how his grandfather had always liked to mention things like the past glory of the family. Maybe grandfather's wish could be realized. This thought flashed through Shui Yu's mind. An innately calm person, Shui Yu started to examine this plan in more detail. The more he studied, the more he felt that the great schemer in the shadows was unfathomable. He found that many parts of the plan were related to the knowledge that was provided to him. That grandmaster schemer clearly had considered every aspect. He repeatedly pondered every detail and memorized the entire plan. He speculated on all the accidents that could occur and how he should respond. Closing his eyes, Shui Yu tried to erase the nervousness inside. He told himself that with his present strength, even if a problem occurred, he could fight his way out. When he opened his eyes again, his eyes were once again completely calm. A while later, the guard jogged back with an expression that was more respectful. "Please come in, Darren is waiting in the main hall for you." The main hall meant the greatest of receptions. Shui Yu politely nodded in acknowledgement and followed the guard towards the main hall. It seemed that this Mo general did have a connection to the Silver Catalpa cavern. Otherwise, he would not be so nervous. The Silver Catalpa cavern was an ancient inheritance ground. As time passed, there were very few that knew of it. Shui Yu had secretly investigated this Mo general, but the information he had gathered was not clear. But in the plan, the Mo skill the Mo general practiced and even his daily habits were listed in detail. Shui Yu increasingly felt the great power of the Darren behind him. If he did not have great power, how could he do all this? Investigate this person. Hard at work, Wei threw a name over to Pu Yao. Unusually Pu Yao did not protest. He took a glance and turned to enter the 10-finger prison. Entering the 10-finger prison, Pu Yao familiarly entered the 10th prison with a few hops. The core of the 10-finger prison, the restricted lands of the elders. This was an area that was restricted to elders. The elders that were scattered across the major Yao Jia would come here to regularly meet and discuss all kinds of problems. The orders that decided the fate of all Yao would frequently be made here and then be sent to the major Yao Jia. Pu Yao seemed to not see the numerous and varied Jinji, he floated past them like a wisp of smoke. He quickly entered a black restricted area. The black restricted area was covered with terrifying Jinji. This was the location of the Intelligence Division, the Shadow Pavilion, that was under the direct command of the Council of Elders. There was an astounding amount of intelligence gathered here. Every day, the Shadow Pavilion members that were scattered all over would send the intelligence they thought was valuable to this place. The intelligence would then be filtered, categorized, and archived. Pu Yao strolled through the corridors as though he was wandering through his own backyard. He quickly sneaked into a storage. After taking a few glances, he quickly found the intelligence he needed. The dark pavilion had eyes everywhere. The intelligence here was not limited to the Yao but contained dossiers on the Mo and Shouja. Any person famous from the three races would have a file here. Without wasting any effort, Pu Yao found the intelligence he needed and disappeared. Returning to the Sea of Consciousness, he gave the intelligence he obtained to Wei. The two then had a heated discussion. This is too dangerous. But if we place our bets right, the profit would be unimaginable. Shui Yu's speculation about the mastermind was generally correct, but his only mistake was that the daring plan was not made by one but two grandmaster schemers. Fei Lei traveled over mountains and water. His face was weathered. There were more than 100 young people behind him dressed in worn clothing. In comparison to the others, his mission was much simpler. He received a list with some clans and their general living location. The mission the Blood Summon had given him was very simple. He was to find these clans and convince them to join him and form a battalion. The battalion's name would be the King's Horn. The name of this battalion caused Fei Lei's heart to beat wildly. Was the Darren who sent the blood summons a king? The King's Horn. Fei Lei was not as clever as Shui Yu, but he was a reliable person. The inheritance he received included MO skills and knowledge on battle generals. He also had experience in training battalions, and this was why Pu Yao and Wei had given him this mission. He went searching based on the list, and the surprise he felt increased. He didn't know how the Darren behind him had found these clans. These clans all had terrible living conditions. Some of the clans only had 20 to 30 people left. After coming into contact with them, Fei Lei was even more astonished. All of these clans possessed a long history and had been great once upon a time. Fei Lei knew what this meant. Noble bloodlines. While these clans mostly had declined due to losing their MO skill inheritances, the blood that flowed within them had not changed. If they could find their MO skill inheritances, they could once again step onto the world stage. Thinking about this, Fei Lei's heart moved again because the blood summons had also given him countless MO skills inheritances. The King's Horn. Fei Lei's turned towards the young people that were dressed in varied attire. Some looked like beggars. He suddenly felt great anticipation. Under their dirty and young appearances, the awakening of the noble bloodlines. The King's Horn would blow away the dust of time, and the past glory of their bloodlines would come once again. What? You're crazy. Yu Qinglai's rebellious face was full of fury as he pointed at Pu Yao's nose and cursed. You just got out of the jail, and you want Yi to go back? Yi tells you, you won't do it. Just as he finished speaking, Yu Qinglai's body suddenly tightened and he was unable to move. Yu Qinglai strained his neck upwards and continued to curse loudly, if you have skill, kill Yi. Don't think you will go back to the jail. Kill you? An eerie light flashed across Pu Yao's bloody pupil. His thin blade-like lips curved slightly. How can I let you off so easily? You know, I have many ways that to make you unable to live and unable to die. Yu Qinglai stopped talking. He knew this. He had inherited all kinds of eerie Yao arts related to stealth, concealment, and assassination. Among these Yao arts were many torture methods that could make people beg for death. Even he could do them now. Pu Yao looked down at him coldly. Your personality is really not suited to moving in the dark. It is a pity that you are the only Yao left, so the benefits fall to you. That's fine with me, but if you ruin my plan, I will take back what I have given you, with interest. Pu Yao's icy words caused Yu Qinglai to tremble. He knew what the interest was, his life. Having received the inheritance, he knew just how cruel and ruthless the people that moved in the darkness were. What's the benefit in going to a crappy place like jail? Yu Qinglai's throat felt dry. He retreated. You have to change your way of thinking. Pu Yao's bloody pupil was bottomless. He said in a slightly mocking tone, for a commander of the dark, jail is where talented individuals gather. There are con men, schemers, butchers, swindlers, cheats, each full of talent. Those are bad people. Yu Qinglai couldn't help but say. Are you a good person? You were also in jail. It is not important if they are good or bad. What is most important is that they are all enemies of the Council of Elders. Pu Yao's tone was cold. You better familiarize yourself with the rules of darkness as soon as possible. What I need is a commander of the darkness. If you cannot do it, I will switch to someone else. As regretful as the lost time would be, I lack patience. You want me to recruit them? Yu Qinglai was not stupid and quickly reacted. Recruit? Ha! Pu Yao seemed to have heard something humorous and laughed loudly. What's there to laugh at? Yu Qinglai was angry and embarrassed. Those people cannot be recruited. Pu Yao's bloody pupil narrowed and he looked at Yu Qinglai. He said meaningfully, this is a test for you, good luck. Finishing, Yu Qinglai felt his vision turn dark and he was forcibly ejected from the 10-finger prison. He just wanted to curse aloud when the door was suddenly kicked open. A group of people rushed in and forced him to the floor. Stay still. You have been captured. In Zhuo Mo's sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's expression was displeased. He murmured to himself, calling yourself Yi in front of me, you don't want to live. He couldn't help but think of another person that frequently did this, but he was one who he could not do anything against. His displeasure increased. He immediately decided to increase the tasks related to Yu Qinglai's mission. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.